Today I had the privilege of speaking with an incredible man. His name is Mohammad Mahdi Anwar. And we spoke for about 3 hours. And he is currently going through a process very similar to the Catholic seminary to become an imam in the Shia Muslim faith. So a bit of context quickly before we get into the conversation. Shia Islam amounts for about 15% of the Islamic faith across the world. So the major religion is actually Sunni Islam. And we discuss almost everything and not enough. And we took 3 hours of that. So there'll definitely be more conversations coming. I found this conversation to be insightful, interesting, a really good spiritual lesson more than a state of affairs of the world, but a state of affairs of the soul. And I think I've gained a lot of insight into potential paths forward for this country, because there is no slowing down a spread of something that is being pushed upon a nation, and that is growing, not only just pushed, but also growing organically in and of itself, right? There's massive growth in the Muslim population in Australia. And so I do feel that it is incumbent on us as lay people, and also then as spiritual people, religious people, to have these conversations now so that we can find a way forward that is equitable for everyone. And so before we get into the conversation, I think that a couple of things to keep in mind here, obviously, is that while he is training to be an imam, he is not currently an imam. So anything that he might have said that may have been incorrect, you've got to take with a pinch of salt. Anything that I said that is incorrect, and I think I said like 3 or 4 things in there that are technically incorrect. We are lay people discussing our beliefs, and so while it is a very interesting conversation, do not take anything as doctrine until you go look it up yourself, especially from the Catholic perspective. From my side, make sure you go look up what I've said from a catechesis perspective. Google search it, find out whether I'm right or wrong. Probably one of the biggest ones is that I mentioned that Peter is not the successor of Jesus, which what I meant by that was technically correct. It's that he is the successor to the authority of the church on earth, as in to say he's the steward. But technically, by verbiage, he is the successor. Or by noun, he is technically the successor. And so that's one of the things that you'll see in there. We speak on everything. We go through everything from Gaza and Israel all the way through to like the minuscule similarities between Christianity, Catholicism, Judaism, and Islam. Some really interesting stuff and perspectives that I'd never heard before. So I think that you will enjoy the conversation. It is 3 hours, so if you're on a drive, run it through. If you're cleaning the house, put it in your earphones. But enjoy. This is a special Sunday episode of the Pirotta Show with special guest Mohammad Mahdi Anwar.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. Blaster! Welcome to the Pirotta Show.
Mate, it's been probably, I think, 11 or 12 years since we actually connected. For anyone who doesn't know, I met Marty actually at school from, I think it was year 8 till about year 11, end of year 11.
It was actually only year 11.
Really?
Only came for year 11. Yes, it feels long because we've had such a great connection, friendship, and
we connected so quickly.
We did. It was really good experience. I also felt I was there for a long time, but when I thought about it, there was only that year 11 that I actually came, and then left for year 12. So
Where did you actually go afterwards?
well, I went back to Kingswood High School. I was there.
Kingswood High School.
That's right.
Yeah. And then from there, university or?
Yes, university. I initially started with Bachelor of Teaching and in Macquarie University, but then it wasn't something that was for me. So what I did was I changed to the health field of nursing, and nursing
Oh,
is
wow.
something that I enjoyed. I realized I like to help people, and it just gave me that rewarding feeling. So I went through that. Yeah. How have you been? Like, what have
Do
you
you work in public or private health?
It was, it's actually a private company. It's a aged care plus NDIS company that I'm working more with compliance and policies. It's not really on-field nursing now. I've done that for a while, but now I'm focused more on the corporate side of it.
Oh, that's good. Man, that was a full tangent, but let's get into it. I mean, well, I reached out to you. I've started this podcast, and I was about to speak about the ANIC, and I thought to myself, you know what? I know some really, really good Muslims, and I'd seen some of your content actually come up on Instagram with you actually speaking in front of a crowd, and some really cool videos with, like, I think they looked a bit AI generated, but they looked really cool.
Thank
And
you.
I said, why don't I just reach out? Why don't I just say, hey, mate, do you want to come and talk about your faith? Talk about its context in Australia, speak about, what are the things that are similar to the Christian and Catholic faith that sort of built Australia and its predecessors, England, America. And why don't I just, let's try and cut through the fear, and let's actually try and understand the role of Islam inside of Australia, considering it's the fastest growing faith in the country. Outside of Hinduism, it's not as prevalent in society as Islam and Christianity are. And so I wanted to kick this off with just a prayer. I was saying just before we got on air that I've never heard a Muslim prayer, and I'd love to see something that is based around wisdom or something like that, just something that you could share with us to kick this off.
I think what I'll do is say it quickly in Arabic, because we normally say it in Arabic. Then I'll let you know what it meant and what I was really saying. It's a short little one that we like to start off from most of our conversations or anything that we do. We'll just go as like Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. As-salatu was-salamu ala ashrafil anbiya'i wa sayyidul mursaleen. Habib qulubina wa shafi' nufusina Abul Qasim Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa alihi. وعلى أهل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين المعصومين المظلومين ولعنة دائما على أعدائهم أجمعين إلى يوم القيامة. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. اللهم كل وليك الحجة ابن الحسن صلواتك عليه وعلى آبائه في هذه الساعة وفي كل ساعة وليا وحافظا وقائدا وناصرا ودليلا وعينا حتى تسكنه أرزقا طوعا وتمتعه فيها طويلا برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين. So that is the prayer that we normally start off from the hierarchy of God himself, starting with his name, followed up by saying that all praise is due to God. Whatever we have, whatever we start our day, whatever we the way we speak, our senses, everything pretty much is all credited to God himself. Then we move on to praising and sending blessings of God to his prophet that started the religion of Islam, Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, and his progeny, then followed by sending more blessings to his progeny that are the 12 successors of the religion. And after that, towards the end, I mentioned about the hastening of the reappearance of the 12th successor, who will actually reappear at the same time as the Messiah, as Catholics and the Christians believe. So his name is the Mahdi, who is coming and is sort of like our savior and our salvation, alongside, Jesus himself. So that's pretty much sums it up, the whole
It's
thing.
amazing. Wow, what a historical prayer! But I was assuming it would be something small, but that's like a history lesson inside of a prayer That's awesome. That's pretty impressive.
Thanks,
And
man.
that's one of the things that I've always found interesting about Islam as well, is that like we do 1 hour of church, but if I'm correct, like the way that you do your teaching is it goes for really long. Like you guys are, when you're actually doing teaching inside of it, it goes for like 2 hours plus. Is that right?
Yeah, it depends on the topic, and it depends on sort of if it's a workshop or anything like that. We can go for as long as we like. Sometimes we give lectures. We don't want to make it too long. People lose focus, especially with today's social media, all the shorts and the reels that we watch. Psychologically, it's proven that we lose focus of that. So we tend to sort of separate these into shorter lectures or classes. Mainly when you give lectures, it's not more than 40 minutes or 30 minutes. Really, really long ones would take about an hour or just over an hour. But then you got different types of other classes or workshops that takes a few hours, and that takes more. It's more like a class to attend. You 2-3 hours, depends. You take notes and all that stuff. So it sort of
Yes.
varies. I reckon, yeah.
Yeah. It's. I think we're going to dig into a lot of the similarities in this. I might do my own quick prayer.
Yep.
Mine is a quick prayer. It doesn't go for 10 minutes like yours. It's not a full history lesson. But mine is Father, Son, and the Holy Spirit. Amen. God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things that I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. And that's it. That's the whole prayer. It's a prayer that I do at the beginning of before I do every show, because I think being on camera is very anxiety inducing, and doing anything where you're sort of giving your opinion is very anxiety inducing. And so I thought I want to be serene, but I want a bit of help with the wisdom. Right. So I thought the serenity, it's called the serenity prayer. If you want to look it up later, it's a little bit longer than that. But that's the portion of the prayer that is, most often cited. And when I was looking things up, there's very similar style prayers like that, or texts even within the Quran itself, like things that are just asking for help a lot. And even in later texts as well, which I'll get you to give a brief on that, a brief overview from your perspective. But first, I'd like from the faith side, but first I'd like to just understand more about you. If you can just share with everyone who you are, where you came from, how you ended up in this position now, which, to explain it, the best way that I could explain it is that in the Catholic faith, we have the seminary where you become a priest. You're sort of in the same place at the moment where you are learning to become a teacher of the faith. And so if you can give a brief overview, and it doesn't have to be brief. I said brief prayer and it wasn't brief. I like that it wasn't. So if you can just give a brief overview of your life, how you ended up in Australia. And yeah, over to you.
Well, to begin with, as we all know about the war in Afghanistan, that's pretty much a lot of our stories begin in where the war started from. So as a result, we had to flee to Australia, and then we started our life here. And from there onwards, went to public school, high school, and so forth, and university now. Then I was always interested about religion, about learning itself in general, to be honest. I love to learn. But religion, I grew up with it. And so there was a lot of obstacles that put me back in my life, which then drew me back to religion itself and God and mercy and love and things like that. So as a result, I tend to be more drawn into it. So I learn more about it. And we have seminaries as well, which are face to face, but also you can have online ones in English as well to learn. So I decided to join those, and as a result, it can take a long time, a few years, and this is endless. You can take as long as you want, your whole life, if you like, to learn more, or you could take it's like a similar bachelor's degree or certain things like that. That it's like 3-4 years or so. Then you'll be a full-fledged, and the journey begins pretty much. So I'm in pursuing that right now. So I'm learning about it. I haven't fully graduated from the course, but I'm in that position now that
How far along are you?
I've had to stop it because of university. But once I finished, started back again, I'd say about over a year's or 2 years worth now. on and off. Because in Australia, in here, it's a bit harder. When you go overseas and you actually do it, you are there, that's your main focus, and you get those many years to finish. But in here, it's a lot of on and off times. So I'd have to say a year or two worth of studying.
And do you have to do a trip at some point as like a finishing school? Because I know that from the seminary perspective is that the Catholic faith, I know a lot of priests go to Rome towards the end of basically their learning, so that they, immerse themselves inside of the Vatican and the history and the faith, and they get really specific teaching. Is there something similar to that?
Well, definitely the teaching overseas is much more full on and better. And it's encouraged to do it there in itself. For us, we can choose to do it in here and finish it off. There is that options. But a lot of us tend to go forward with it. And in order to seek more knowledge, we do tend to go there every few months or so. Sometimes I have a friend who goes there for 3 months, comes back for about 6-7 months here, and then goes. That's to be able to get that full potential of the actual course that you're doing. So we can have, it's sort of a choice, but it is better to do it in the actual course. Yeah.
And is that Iraq, Afghanistan, Iran? Which nation is that? Does
There's
a lot of that teaching happen in?
A lot of a few countries do it now, especially with the Shia sect. We mainly have it in Iran. I'm not doing the Iran one. Mine is more focused in the one in Iraq, because they have two main. That's the two biggest ones that really give good teachings. And then, you got these sort of local ones in Afghanistan and a few here and there. But the main one, I would have to say, is the biggest one is in Iraq. And then you can have in Iran as well, which also is like, I would say, second best in there. Yeah.
Awesome. I mean, that's a pretty crazy life story. I mean, fleeing persecution as part of your story is probably one of the cooler ways someone has explained their life story to me. So, from my perspective, anyway, I'm sure it wasn't cool for you at the time. And I hope that you and your family have, settled in Australia well, and you look like you definitely have. So,
yeah, for sure.
Let's dig in. I mean, I sent you just a couple of questions or topics that I'd like to discuss, and I want to kick off with a happy baseline, and then we'll start asking more difficult questions as we go along. The familiar fruits. Yeah, that's what I've titled it. There is a link between Judaism, Catholicism, and Islam. I mean, we are called the monotheistic religions.
Yes.
There is a lot of history that says that we are, we all believe in the same God. There are people who debate that, and the semantics of it, I'm sure we'll discuss at some point. But I think that it would be really good to get an understanding from your perspective of what are the, obviously we'll speak of the pillars of Islam, but if you can give the basic fruits of what it is for a Muslim to live a good life, maybe just as a regular person, as an imam or a teacher, and maybe also as from a political perspective that sort of link in with Catholicism and Christianity, the similar ideas, and then we can start to discuss the things that differ, what might be good and what might be bad, and just give our opinions on how we could integrate that in Australia specifically.
Definitely. For starters, in order to really introduce the religion of Islam, it's a big spread around this message of Islam meaning peace. And yes, although it promotes peace, but when we get to the linguistics of the word Islam, it means submission, submitting to sort of the will of God, submitting to his teachings and the message that came with it from the prophets. And to be honest, Islam itself is got a lot of similarities to pretty much this monotheist religions, as well as every other religion. The core message to every religion, and we follow religion. Why do we follow religion? Is a way of life, a lifestyle, a guide that we can go towards in order to be able to know what we're doing at every path and have a purpose. And that you can find in a lot of religions, but it's more specifically being able to follow something that your soul finds that peace. And this is where the word peace comes from in Islam, is being able to find that peace. Even when it comes to marriage in the Quran, it says, find a partner that you can find peace within. So if we revolve around this kind of idea, we can see it flourish in Christianity, we can see it in Judaism, we can see it in Hinduism. Every religion you go towards, it gives you this sort of idea. And we link these two roots, especially speaking about Christianity and Islam, is a lot of links and relationships between these two. First of all, we can
a lot of similar characters, right? A lot of, even in the stories, the characters are very similar.
100% similar characters, and these two pretty much, they're both Abrahamic religion, although it comes from Adam himself way before Abraham was, but it's the religion itself, because the link, I say Abraham's because that is where the link really started from. It's the lineage that it came from and sort of split into these two types of religion. When we trace back to Abraham, his son Ishmael, which there was a sacrifice he had to go through with him. And through that, he became beloved to God and all these other things. This is specific things I'm talking about.
What was the story of the sacrifice of Ishmael? I've never heard of the actual story of the sacrifice of Ishmael.
Okay, so that's when we have, the day of Eid here.
Yes.
We do that. Sort of, there's two Eids, but there's more, but these two main ones that one is after the month of fasting, but then there's a second one called Eid of, it's that a sacrifice where Abraham was tested through his son Ishmael.
You believe so in the Islamic faith it's through Ishmael, because we believe that it's through Isaac that the sacrifice happened.
Well, there we go. That's probably why the links went separate ways, I reckon. But yes.
Yeah. So I'll explain it from the Catholic perspective, and the Judaic perspective is that Isaac was the sacrificial lamb that Abraham was told by God by an angel to go up to a mountain and sacrifice Isaac. But before the sacrifice happened, God said, "Stay your hand." And then he offered a goat instead, or a ram that was stuck in the thistle as the sacrifice. In the Catholic and Judaic text, Ishmael was actually the child of one of his concubines.
All right.
And so in the Judaic text, so Ishmael was, and then there was some fight, if I'm remembering correctly, between the concubine and Abraham's wife, and she was banished with the son Ishmael. So that's interesting that is that the Quranic texts that explain Ishmael as a sacrifice?
Yes, Ishmael is the sacrifice in there, and we have verses directly mentioning that, because Ishmael was the son, as you mentioned, the banishment, right? More of a banishment. It was that he took his other wife, Ishmael's mom, which her name in Arabic is Hajar, right? So he takes them both to this sort of desert place. So all this, it might sound a bit more confronting at first, but there's a wisdom behind it, as we know. So he takes it, and they're stranded in this desert, and so the mother is going past these two mountains here and there in order to find some hope for water, or what's going on. We're stranded here by ourselves, and this ritual actually is something that we practice till this day when we go to the pilgrimage in Saudi Arabia called Hajj. It's called Safa and Marwa, these two mountains that we go in between.
Hajj.
Yes. And what happened was, as a miracle, when she started to lose a little bit of hope that it's not happening, then all of a sudden, Ishmael was a young baby, very young baby, a toddler. He starts to hit his foot on the ground, and from the bottom of his foot, water flows and comes out. And I don't know if you've heard the word Zamzam water. It's the holy water for us. So that's where Zamzam water comes from. And when you go to Saudi Arabia during Hajj, you will see a well that they've created from that. And to this day, that water is still flowing. And people...
And the belief is that the water came from the rock or from his foot.
Well, under his foot, it was under his foot, and that was giving them that sustenance of water in a desert.
And it's still there.
It's still there. It's still there, and the water is a lot of water. People go, like millions of people every year. They bring it in like bottles and big, amounts of it. So that's sort of like
similar. There's
yes.
a story of that with there's a story of that with Mohammed as well, isn't there? Where he made water pour from his fingers. Is that?
Those are a lot of miracles.
Yeah.
The Prophet Muhammad is one of his miracles. A lot of miracles he did. One of them, the big one that we can see till today, a sign of is the splitting of the moon. And if I'm not sure if anyone's aware of it, there's images of the moon that's got this crack mark in the middle of it. That's where that miracle comes from. So similar to other prophets before him, he also performed miracles as well. And so that's why these are signs of prophethood. These are signs of successorship and being able to be chosen divinely by God. One of them is you can perform these, miracles.
Yeah, I was looking up the miracles of Muhammad, and it's funny because you can draw so many parallels between his miracles as written in the Quran and then the biblical miracles that Jesus does, like the feeding of the 5,000 is one of the bigger miracles, and Muhammad feeds, I think it was 27 people with 3 figs, or something like that, or 3 dates. He allows 1,200 people, I think it was, to drink water from a cup like this big, very tiny, similar to the feeding of the 5,000. And there are several. Are there any scholars of Islam who go through those miracles, specifically the one about the moon? Because I did see that and I couldn't understand how it was a miracle. And so if you could explain that one a little bit more, as to what happened with that miracle and why it's such a big one inside of the Islamic religion.
It's one of the big ones because it's things that is outside of the Earth, like atmosphere. So this is something that a lot of, if you even look at the Bible and Judaism books, when prophets used to perform miracles, a lot of people would call them magicians after that, the ignorant ones, and they wouldn't believe. That's right. So they would say, "I'll believe if you show me the miracle." But then when he did, they wouldn't believe him because they call him a magician or all these other names to manipulate people. So this specifically was outside of the zone. You cannot do magic with this. Like, this is more towards the time where you just really can't believe, and you're a very ignorant person. You're someone who, because we have a line in the Quran that says it's not the eyes that are blind, it's the hearts that are blind. And so these are the type of people that needed to see these kind of miracles that to this day we can hear about it. And so the splitting of the moon didn't happen. Everybody in there, all around the world that could see the moon at that time was witness to that miracle.
Yeah, there were the reports that there was a Christian scholar in India who saw it, and then he built the first temple in India, or what was then India. And there was another one from, I believe it was the western region of Arabia. I forgot what it was, but she was Jewish, and she saw it as well, and they built another mosque in that area.
Yeah.
Too. So that it is very interesting when you look back on these, and we have so many of the same ones, right, or very similar. I mean, even in the Old Testament, you see the blotting out of the sun in Egypt, which I believe to that extent, I believe we pretty much believe most of the Old Testament very similar. Obviously, that Israel story, or Ishmael and Isaac's stories, is different on the person who is involved, but the stories are similar. And so I wonder do you have anything else that is very similar between the two religions? And then we'll dig into Jesus, and I'd love to understand your perspective of Jesus, because obviously that's going to be antithetical to my understanding. So
no, definitely 100%. Yes. Many other things that come into it is obviously I mentioned the teachings that they have about love and mercy and oneness of God and these things. And also like we spoke earlier about the Genesis 17, verse 20, I believe it is about when Ishmael has been giving this good news of having this 12 sort of princes. And these 12 princes are what refers to the 12 successors that comes after the prophet, because from Abraham himself all the way to Prophet Muhammad, there's a direct link to their lineage, which continues now to the 12 successor that's coming. And interestingly enough, that lineage, when I mentioned that it continues all the way to 12 successor, his mother was his descendant of Simon, one of the success.
Peter,
Is it Simon or Peter?
Simon Peter. So
Simon Peter, right.
Yes.
Okay, so Simon was, I believe, for Islam, he was the successor of Jesus. After him, he was the most reliable, and I believe that's what you take as well.
We don't believe that he is the successor of Jesus. In our faith, there is no one higher than Jesus, God, and the Holy Spirit, who we see as the Triune God. So that is one of the, as I was looking it up, that is one of the criticisms of Catholicism and Christianity from the Muslim perspective, is that a lot of Muslims believe that Catholics and Christians actually believe in three gods, which we don't. We believe in a triune God. The way I explain it to people a lot of the time is it's sort of like if you go to buy ice cream and you get Napolitana ice cream. And so Napolitana ice cream has obviously the chocolate, the vanilla, and the strawberry. And it's all ice cream. And if you take any individual scoop, it's also ice cream. If you take any one of them out and put it in a cone, it's still ice cream. And that's the way that I sort of try and simply explain the triune God, is that Jesus is is the Son, the Holy Spirit is the love between the Son and the Father, and you cannot have any without each, but each of them without the other is also God in its own way. So it's a big mystery. No one's ever going to be able to explain it. And so Peter, or Simon, who is named Peter by Jesus, is not a successor. He is the sort of the intercessor. The papacy is God's church on earth, and he is the head of that church. And so the papacy is sort of like our messenger from God is the Pope, and then we spread down from there.
I guess he's sort of like a trustworthy person to be able to carry the message in a way, then spread it. Is that the key idea?
Yeah. And it's sort of like a 50-50 between Sunni Muslim and Shia Muslim, where we believe that God divinely inspires all of the cardinals who are the voting party. So we believe that they go so when the Pope is selected, he goes into a room basically with all of the cardinals, and of all the cardinals and anyone on earth, not only a cardinal can be selected as Pope, but all of the cardinals will vote upon who is going to be the new Pope. But the idea is that decision is not their own. That decision is inspired by the Holy Spirit, who is God. And so it's sort of a blend, I think, of Sunni and Shia beliefs, because there is an election process, but we believe it's divinely inspired.
Well, yeah.
And so, the direct line of Peter exists apostolically rather than hereditary, if that makes sense.
Right. I see. Yeah. No, good point. It's good. So now we've got the idea of sort of his position in both beliefs now, and sort of the link that I'm trying to say about Simon Peter is that he's the successor. The 12th successor, who we also call the 12 Imams, which Ali, if you've heard his name, is the first one that the Prophet put his hand up before he was going to depart the world, to say he is going to be trusted with the religion after me, as he's been appointed by God himself. So then,
and he was the nephew. He was the nephew of Muhammad.
He was the cousin of Muhammad, Prophet Muhammad, but because he was so much younger than him, practically the Prophet raised him.
Yes.
And Ali's father, which is we called him back then in Arabia, they called him Abu Talib. So the oldest son would be how the father would be known by. So Abu Talib means father of Talib. His son's name was
Yes.
Talib. So what happened was then Abu Talib raised Prophet Muhammad because Prophet Muhammad's parents obviously died when he was very young. He's practically
Ah.
classified as an orphan. And so that's why he raised him. So he not only he was raised in the same household as Ali, but then afterwards he took Ali under his wing and raised him. And so anyway, when we move on to the last successor, which is called the Mahdi, he has the similar name to Muhammad. His name is actually Muhammad as well.
Yes.
His mother was the princess of, if I'm not mistaken, this Roman princess who they were also Christians back then and that time. And she was supposed to be married to obviously one of the other royals that were coming to seek her hand in marriage. But then all of a sudden, the pillars of that throne that they had set up for the marriage ceremony, it collapses, which is a bad omen in back Christianity. So the grandfather of her, the princess, says, lift them up again because the bad omen means we can't marry to this son. So let's marry her to the other son. So then the pillars collapse again. This is just briefly saying the story. And, as it goes, the story goes, the grandfather, eventually she doesn't get married and she falls really sick and she has a dream that night. What's interesting is this is where I want to talk about the link of Christianity. It's a beautiful story of how in her dream, she has this a proposal for her where Prophet Muhammad in the up in heavens, how you have a dream and it's up in heavens, he comes proposal in front of Jesus himself in her hand for marriage to his own descendant. So Jesus tells Simon Peter, you have been honored that the prophet has come seeking hand of marriage of one of your descendants. So, put these two marriages together, pretty much accept it because it will bring honor to both these faiths, I guess, the lineages. And as a result, of course, that's what happens.
And so the descendant of Peter marries the descendant of Muhammad.
Yes, that's right. Yeah.
In the line. I have to look that up. I've never heard that one before.
Because that's good. That's an interesting one. When I read about it, it was quite a beautiful story. In length, it's a beautiful story, but I'm just briefly saying it is what happened then. These imams, these 12 successors, are pretty much the lineage of the prophet who are from sons and sons and sons. These are not particularly their older sons. That's why we say divinely chosen, because they were chosen, and sometimes there were certain conflicts that the older son thought maybe I was the one, and instead he said, no, it's not you, it goes to him instead. So not only the chosen divinely appointed imams were there, but also they were giving the knowledge that had been compiled all these centuries and millennials. I would say millennials, like 10,000 years is from Adam to pretty much now it's been 10,000 years approximately. So the knowledge was also being passed down as well at the same time, because these are trusts that only these people can carry, I'd say.
Yeah, I'll ask two questions on that because I think, one, I'd love to understand how the lineage of Peter is tracked. And there's a lot of lineages that I see when we're comparing Islam and the Quran to the Bible and to the Torah specifically. And a lot of the genealogies, it seems that at least Christians and Catholics have not actually even tracked the genealogy of the disciples. In the Bible itself, I believe Peter might be one of the only ones who is said to have even been married, and it never mentions children in the Bible. So I'd love to understand how that genealogy is traced from Islam, specifically when it comes to Muhammad, obviously, because for those who do not know, and correct me if I get this wrong, the Quran is the divinely inspired word of God given to Muhammad through the angel Gabriel over the course of 23 years in the Islamic faith. Is that correct?
Yes, that's right.
And so how is the genealogy traced? Is it only through divine inspiration, or is there a historical claim as well through texts, etc.?
So this is where we gathered information from not just the book itself, The book has everything in there that we need, of course, as a guideline, lifestyle. But even there are certain verses in the book that, for example, tells you to pray, but it does not tell you how to pray. And so this is why these prophets, this is why these imams, this is why these divinely chosen appointed leaders were sent down in order to give interpretation of the book, in order to explain the background history of it, all these verses that came when they came. And that's why it's so important that they get passed down specifically. So then we move on to what we call hadith. Hadith is narrations that the Prophet also mentions and then passed down the Imams. So when they are divinely chosen means they also have divine knowledge. So they know everything from the beginning to the end. And these were especially the first five, which is Muhammad, his daughter Fatima, and his successor Ali. And we got their two sons, Hassan and Hussein. These are also mentioned in the Bibles and Judaism and other books as well, because we also believe in the other three books as well, not just the Quran. So these five especially were created before creation itself. These were
The five prophets.
No, they're not prophets. So only one of them is a prophet, which is Muhammad.
Okay.
Right? And then you move on to Ali, and then Prophet's daughter Fatima, who married Ali, these two, and then their two sons. So these were created before us. So they have been given this divine knowledge of knowing exactly what happened before creation, after creation, during it, up in heavens, up on earth, everywhere. So they have all this. So that's where the narrations come from. We follow
So
narration.
I just want to collect it before you go on, because there's so much to gather here.
Yes.
So the five, so the Prophet Muhammad, and then the four after him were
more the four after
not
him.
the prophets, the teachers, Fatima, Ali, and the other two.
Their two sons. So they were called the household of the Prophet.
Okay.
They're called the house. They were alive during the Prophet as well, right?
And so they were created before all time.
Before creation itself.
Before creation itself.
Yeah, so they don't count as the time of creation because they are glorifying God way before creation itself. 7,000 years, some narrations state that they were glorifying God, and they were lights then. So as we see them as the carcasses and the shells that we're in as human beings, they were not like that in that form. Like we have souls. This whole body is not ours.
Yes.
It's going to decay. Similar to them, they were created from the light of God himself, which split into two, and these two lights are similar, which is Muhammad and Ali. And from that light, another light was created, and so forth, and all these successors come from that. But anyway, what I'm trying to get at is this knowledge, this constant verses of the Quran that tracks these as well at the same time. That's how we know one way. Then narrations, we have narrations because they existed way before the creation itself, so they know all of these histories and where somebody comes from. So these are all the sort of, and of course, history books and record keeping, and these things are how we're able to tell the lineage of certain individuals. Yeah.
I find that interesting, and I'll preface this next comment and this next question because it can seem probably a little bit rough, but I mean, there have been plenty of times where I've questioned the legitimacy of the Bible. There's been plenty of times where I questioned the legitimacy of the text, because we also believe that the Bible is divinely inspired, that the words inside of it are the true account of both history and the life of Jesus on earth. And what I find is the question that I always have to ask is, have you ever thought that maybe the Quran and its writing was simply cultic text, was simply, and a lot of people will say this, and I don't want to offend your prophet in any way. But what I do want to ask is there anything that has ever gone through your mind that made you question his authenticity, the authenticity of those who came after him? And how can we steelman the argument of Muhammad to say, yes, we definitely know that what he was saying was truth from an Islamic perspective?
Of course. We always, one of the main things is that we have to not just, and one of the constant things that has been told to every person in there, when you read the Prophet's stories, one thing I notice is every time a Prophet would go and invite people to the religion of the oneness of God, they will always say, you know, we don't need your religion, we don't need your message. We have our forefathers to follow whatever they followed, right? And that's why it's also encouraging to us, and religion actually encourages us to go and seek knowledge, go find the real truth, you know? And in that, it's trying to say that I was in the same position. I was like, okay, let's go actually learn about all these things and really find out. And this is when I was a bit younger. So I said, okay, let's have a compare. Let's see what's going on. So I went and looked at it and everything there. And I found myself that made more sense to me was the scripture that I followed. But why was it giving me the doubt is because I didn't know enough about it. That knowledge, and we have something that, like I mentioned about the creation, the first thing that did ever get created, I'm talking about after the divine leaders, the first thing that did get created when creation started was intellect. So God created intellect, and then God told intellect, you know, step forward, and it did. And it said step back, and it did as well. And then God said, now you have become the most beloved thing to me, and I will instill this intellect in the people that I also love the most. So whoever has this intellect, and then we're told, how do we then make this better? How do we sort of make our intellect more in a way where we can have better understanding and, you know, remove these doubts and things? Is to gain that knowledge, gain experience, sit with people that have that knowledge and are already in that position. These are the kind of things. So I think knowledge is what really helps you understand better and clear any doubts. Let's say you did have doubts and knowledge makes you more doubtful. That doesn't mean that it's a wrong thing. It means that through knowledge, you've confirmed the doubt. You've confirmed it, so you actually found something better. Either way, you're going to find it. And in order to answer the question of why and how do we know that the Quran is the divinely word of God, is that it says in the Quran itself, it says, you know, those who do say and who do have doubts of whether it's the word of God or not, is, well, we challenge them to make even a single chapter similar to it, you know? So all these things that we see, we read the Quran, for example, or similar, even the Bible and the Torah and the other books that came before it, these were all from God. And we not only see a consistency between these, but also it's challenging us to make something similar to it if you can. And to this day, no one has been able to. And I'm not just referring to Quran, I'm referring to other books as well. Why? Because you cannot replicate God's words. And you can see continuously in the Quran and the verses, it says we have a word in Arabic called qul. Qul. It means say. So it's telling the Prophet to say this. It's telling the Prophet, say, I am only one Lord. It's telling the Prophet, worship me alone. All these things. So, you know, and this cannot be coming from the Prophet himself as well. Because how would the Prophet also know these knowledge of things that happened before him, such as thousands of years ago, about Adam, about Moses, about Jesus, all these people, you know, Quran states all of these things in there in detail specifically. So Muhammad himself could not have come up with this kind of knowledge because it's knowledge that you cannot get unless you've experienced that era yourself.
Yeah, and I think that let me straw man that argument about the Quran, and this will be the first time that we probably disagree, and I'll say my piece, and then we'll see what your thought is. So the common understanding is that Muhammad was illiterate. Is that correct?
That's not correct. No,
that's not correct.
No, it's not correct. That's where the idea that the other sect of Sunni Islam spreads.
So the Sunni Islam believes that he was okay. So that sort of even expands my point. Is if he was not illiterate, the text of the Torah and the Bible predated the Quran by 500 years. And so if he could read, if he could understand, if he was intelligent, which by every measure, whether you believe in what he said and what he said was true or not, he was clearly intelligent. He definitely could have known about the story of Adam and Eve because it was written in the Torah. the other thing that I find very interesting is that the Quran's texts, they sort of take, and I'm going to speak to the prophecies of Muhammad, and I'm pretty sure that is something that is Shia, that are listed within the Bible even. And so some of the prophecies that come up about Muhammad, they seem to me to be deep extrapolation. So I might actually get you to speak to them and the ones that you understand about Muhammad coming, and see if you can reply to that question, that if he was literate, even if he was illiterate and was taught, right? Someone might have taught him, because he had Christians and Jews all around him. From the text, he had a Christian that he was sent to after he saw the vision from Gabriel, and she said, "Oh, you are the Muhammad, or the Muhammadani," I believe was the actual word. But it was the same consonants, which is how Hebrew was written and Islam was written back in the day, or Arabic was written back in the day, which was effectively just consonants. So I'll let you reply to that and we'll see where we end up.
So what was the question? Sorry.
The question is, how can you believe that Muhammad was definitely able to just know these things when the stories that he says in the Quran already existed? They predated his revelations.
So the Quran was not revealed before the Prophet. It was throughout his lifetime. So there were certain things that I'm talking about in terms of the Torah and the Bible and other books. Yes, he was raised alongside with his uncles and his father. All of these people, they were all monotheists. They were not similar to the people of the Mecca who believed in idols and all these other things, right? And they had these things with them, but it's not in detail. Like if you look at the Torah, the Bible, and David's book as well, they all came, but they were not. They still had things that Quran has that they did not have in them in those books as well. At the same time, you can see these things as well, and then you got the power of the miracles as well. You got the revelation, the first revelation, which was in the cave that he was in, that was telling him to prophet, "Oh prophet, read, oh prophet, read," and then he would reply, and that's when he was able to. So at the same time, in order to know he was literate, in order to know that he didn't get it from those books, these things came down to him. So that's why we call them the revelations, because he was given that knowledge. He was instilled that knowledge. Otherwise, nobody could have really had that intellect, or could have had that sort of ideologies of being able to combine these things and then call himself a prophet, because he did not go against those. Instead, he brought all those, and every book, you can see at the end of the day, it all gets, I guess, some of them can get fabricated as well. Similar with narrations, we don't believe every single narration that we've gotten. There is chain of authenticity.
Hadith.
We have to know. Yeah.
Is that hadiths?
Hadith.
Yes.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
There's chains of authenticities that we have to come. And Muhammad never claimed that this was his word. And the intellect was also, he said it came from God himself. So this is where we get even other prophets before him: Jesus, Moses, prophet, Joseph, all these other prophets that came before him. In our religion, it says that they brought not only the message of oneness of God, but they brought the good news of Prophet Muhammad coming. So certain things like Islam, certain things like all these other practices that we do in the Quran, that it states, these were not listed beforehand, or even in detail. For example, a lot of the books that you see, a lot of them had more like commandments. A lot of them had more like ways of life to live. A lot of them had these kind of scriptures in them. But the Quran sort of compiles all of this together and then adds even more details and places history in there, places certain events that took place that those books do not include, but it was before the time of the Prophet himself.
Yep. And so I want to get your opinion on the authenticity of the Torah and the Bible. From an Islamic perspective, are those books also revelations of God? or are there other Islamic versions of those texts which are revelations of God?
So in order to answer this, first we have to go back to the Quran. The Quran was revealed in Arabic. It's still in Arabic, and it continues to be in Arabic forever. All these other books, we believe in them. In the terms of the authenticity, we also believe in them. But what we have now, in terms of how it has sort of gone into more Latin and then changed to English, and so we have a lot of these copies all around the world. Some of them
Yes.
you don't even see a lot of anymore. It's mainly the Bible that's very popular now, that has
Yes.
spread around the world, which is great. But in terms of even those books, we do believe there has been certain fabrications by some ignorant people,
Or
not
mistranslations.
mistranslations, misinterpretation. Yes, this can happen in the Quran as well, but this is outside of the Quran's interpretation where they compile it into their books. But in terms of
Yes.
the Bible and others, it has become within the book itself sometimes. And that's, yes, it was authentic. It did come down like Moses. Prophet Moses went down to them and received the commandments in there as well, and the stone engravings. All those happened.
Yes.
But in terms of the authenticity, we do believe, that's why we believe in the appointed leaders, divinely appointed leaders. They have the actual authentic books with them, the actual authentic scripture that was handed down to Moses, to Jesus, and so forth, and David. So they have the actual thing that they have had with them.
So the
Yes.
original texts exist within the 12 or the 12 imams. They
Yeah.
have those texts.
So the current one that is alive right now, which will be coming, with the Jesus that we mentioned, he has all of those things. And that's one of the ways that he's going to introduce himself to the world so that people believe who he is. Because not anyone can just come and say, I'm the Messiah or I'm your salvation. You have to have proof, just like similar to prophets and everyone before him.
Yes.
So he has the staff of Moses, he has the Torah, he has the Bible, he has everything with him, all of this with him, that he's going to come and present the ring of Solomon, for example, and David. And so he will show you even the treasures of David that's, the whole world is fighting about, for example.
Yeah, that mystery. I'm glad we both know
Yeah,
that's a rabbit hole. I love that.
He will reveal all of this. He will reveal the treasures of the world as well. So these are with them. It's not to say that the Bible that we are reading now is got sort of full-on fabrication. I wouldn't say it's full-on fabrication. No.
Yes.
There are things, like I said, they mentioned the verse that links us both. Those are in the original books, and those have been placed there to sort of show the consistency of these books as well, that they lead to certain messages and certain ideologies at the same time. So, that's our take from it in a way, if that helps.
Yes.
I guess.
I might just get you quickly, and then we'll finish off this point and we'll move into the next section. The main point I think of this is the understanding of Jesus.
Yes.
So from my perspective, the greatest link between the two religions from our perspective as Catholics is actually the understanding of Jesus within Islam. Because while we believe obviously that Abraham passed down through Isaac, all the David, Solomon, down through the Judaic kings, but for us, our religion is fulfilled in Christ Jesus. So we don't see him as a prophet. We see him as the Messiah, which I believe he's actually called the Messiah in the Quran. And when he came down on earth and died for our sins, which I know Muslims don't believe he actually died. When he died for our sins, his sacrifice effectively cleansed the world of the original sin and allowed us to regain salvation with God after the sin of Adam. So that's our belief. That's in very quick 15-second highlights. I'd love to hear how Islam believes Jesus came to this world as a prophet.
Beautiful. Yes. Jesus actually is one of the highest ranked prophet in our religion. We have prophets called Ulul Azam, which means the highest status prophets, and these are not all of them, only certain ones like Abraham and all the Moses and Jesus, and they have from Noah even. So he is got the most highest position there, or the most highest one. He was born as a through obviously the Virgin Mary, and he is known for us as the Spirit of God. Not in the sense it's a metaphoric way. A lot of the Quranic verses, they're very metaphoric, and we have to dig deep into the interpretation of it. And so Jesus for us is a very highly regarded prophet who performed miracles, who did walk on water, who did wake up, make the dead alive, who did cure the blind, who did all these things, yes. And at the same time, we believe, obviously, as a test to mankind, God gave him this revelation that I will be resurrecting you back to heaven, and I will bring you back one day, like which we will discuss later on, perhaps, about the reappearance of the Messiah. His name is Masih, which means the Messiah, yes, in our holy book. And he pretty much then told one of his 12 disciples who is prepared to be sacrificed in my place, because this is the revelation God has given me. I'm going to be raised back up. So one of the younger men that was one of the 12 disciples, he raised his hand up and he straight away, he said, I will do it. So he volunteered that to be that sacrifice. And this is where
Was that John?
John, no, it was not John. I forgot his name specifically. John was martyred before Jesus was raised up. John was
John wrote. John wrote about the death of Jesus.
We might be referring to different John.
Oh, you're talking about John the Baptist.
Baptist, yes.
No, John the disciple.
You might be right. I need to confirm, but I think if I recall, it might have been John. He was one of his really good disciples, and he raised his hand to be sacrificed in his place. And that is why when Judas then introduced him as Moses, he didn't know it was Jesus. So he took the shape and the features of Jesus to look like him. And as a result, he was obviously persecuted and put on the
Interesting.
Yeah.
I love it's funny because I was literally just discussing this with my wife because she wants to start being able to speak about the faith more and her faith more, and so we have arguments, but a lot of it is semantics, right? It's the small little nitty-gritty words and how you translate them and how you understand them that really makes the faith. And so from our side, that story is obviously I would assume at the Last Supper, but in our text, Judas doesn't not know who Jesus is. The Pharisees who want to kill Jesus do not know who Jesus is. They do not know his face because they were never there when he was teaching. Not really. They were hearing whispers about this guy who said, "I am."
Does that mean Judas never sort of knew what Jesus looked like, or it's more like he?
No. So Judas knew. So Judas betrays Jesus.
Yes.
Right. And when the Pharisees give him the pieces of silver so that he will go and betray Jesus, they ask him. They say, "How will we know which one it is? How will we know who Jesus is?" Because you look at a lot of people look very similar, right? And so Judas says, "The one whom I kiss will be the one who is Jesus." And so as they go out with the Romans and the guards and the Pharisees themselves come to collect Jesus from the Garden of Gethsemane, Judas goes up to Jesus and gives him a kiss. It's not that he did not recognize, at least in the biblical text, it's not that he did not recognize Jesus. It's that the Pharisees did not know and the Romans did not know who to arrest, because to them, all these 12 guys, right, following at that point it was 11 because Judas was the traitor. The 11 probably all looked very similar, wore the same clothes, had the same big beards, and the hair was probably all crazy and manic from traveling around everywhere for the last 3 years trying to preach, and so that's the way that we interpret. And if you ever want to watch a show, it's really interesting. I'm not sure if you're able to go and watch this, but there's a show now that's sort of going through the Bible. I forgot what it's on. I think it might be on Netflix, but you should try and go watch it, because obviously what's good about it, or what's hard for me, is that me studying the Islamic faith doesn't add to my religion, right, in a way. But you studying the Christian faith, because it's sort of Islam takes from and expands upon, and probably from your perspective fulfills the words of the Bible. Because of that, you'll get some interesting stuff as well about the story and how we believe it from a Christian perspective.
Of course, 100%, and that's interesting. I do generally do that itself here and there, and I wouldn't say my knowledge is as much as yours, but probably be definitely 100%, and that's the beauty of it, to be able to share it. In terms of John, when I mentioned earlier, so when he volunteered to be the one that is sacrificed, this is the word. We'll get to the word jihad. So this is part of jihad and martyr at the same time.
Really?
Yeah, you'll know what I mean later on when I talk about it. So he volunteers and as a sacrifice. As a result, God makes him look exactly like Jesus. And that's why they cannot mistaken him, thinking they have put Jesus. And when the birth of Jesus actually happened, I should mention this actually, is that Satan, and this is in no way, you know what I mean, like in terms of faith and things like that, it's more just the beliefs. Satan actually, when Jesus was born, he was really angry and upset, and obviously every time a prophet or someone is born, he has to find a new way to mislead people. And so what happened was, Jesus was born. Satan said, how am I going to mislead people now? How am I going to misguide them and turn them into the way of away from God? So then he finds the detail that Jesus was born without a father. And not only that, but it was through Mary, who has no partners, nobody. She's a virgin, a miraculous birth. He says, this is the perfect opportunity for me to be able to spread this and to say that, oh, well, for example, and again, no disrespect. This is the perfect opportunity that I can spread the message that he is born from God himself, the Son of God, or, as we speak about these things. So that is when then he went on to use this Judaism religion, because they were also, some of them were also against the birth of Jesus and him taking over the religion as well. And so he worked with them together in order to misguide people in that way. And that's why, as a result,
from the Islamic faith perspective, so you believe that the story of Jesus being God was fake, or the Son of God is fake, given by the devil?
Yes, because we're saying that is what the devil then started in order to hide the real reason behind it. Because one of the biggest things that God does not forgive in our religion is what we call shirk. Shirk is associating partners with God, saying he's either has a partner who is born of something, or something is born of him, or this kind of humanly relationships. And that is the one thing that God does not associate. So that was an opportunity for Satan himself to be able to associate that with him. And even you'll see it within the religion of Islam, the other sects, not our sect, but the other ones, they begin to also associate these type of characteristics to God himself, saying God has legs, God has arms, and he has hair and all these things, and he has a physical throne and this stuff. But these are not necessarily God's attributes. If God is outside of, if we think concept and time, the concept of time and space. Therefore, time does not apply to someone who is able to be born of something, or there's a lot of chapters that
we give a physical form. We give a physical form to God in order to understand him. It's sort of, we try and see the face of God without doing the work, which is death, right? To see the face of God. The last thing that I will ask on that topic of the birth before you move back to the final part on John is, so how do Muslims believe that Mary conceived without divine intervention?
So that's why it's called the miraculous birth. This was done not as a test to people. It was done to show the power of God, similar to every other miracles that had happened. Similar. That's why God actually in the Quran he compares Jesus. He says, so if you believe Jesus was not born from a father, or for example, not conceived, or thing, then what will you say about Adam himself? He not only didn't have a father, but didn't have a mother either. But yet we had the power to create him from dust, from soil, from clay,
Yes.
for example. We had that power. So these are all to sort of teach us that God can do anything. He's able to do whatever he wills. He's able to bring the dead to life. He can also bring life to dead. He can bring, because in the Quran it says, you are nothing but a little bit of a sperm, yet look at what we created you, and look at how grown you've become. Look at the things that you can do, for example. That's why then we can say, yes, it might not be conceived because it's God's power and it shows his abilities.
Yeah. And so Muhammad receives his revelation from the angel Gabriel in the same way that Mary received her revelation from the angel Gabriel.
Yeah.
And so Mary receives the revelation of the angel Gabriel, and the angel Gabriel says, "Look, for you will bear a son, and you shall call him Emmanuel." And Emmanuel, the translation of that is God with us, right? And so that is the first time that we really see the textual evidence from the Bible that Jesus is actually God. And so it's God is with us through the conception of Jesus within the womb. And so the question here, and then I won't ask any more follow-ups because we can rabbit hole down this forever. Is okay. So Mary receives the vision from the angel Gabriel. So does Muhammad. Why is Gabriel's to Mary incorrect, and why is Gabriel's to Muhammad correct?
They were both correct. They are both revelations, and we believe both of the revelations came to both of them. Mary is actually one of the four holy women in Islam that we see. She is infallible. She is someone who has a very, very high status alongside Asiya, the Pharaoh's wife, and Prophet's wife Khadija, and Prophet's daughter Fatima. So these revelations are not incorrect. It's, for example, maybe how it could have been narrated or passed down, or how it might have along the way. That's my prediction of it. That's why I mean the consistency has to be there, because then someone there was actually we have had a lot of these respectful debates between even the appointed leaders, like excluding even the Prophet himself. I'll even go to his 8th successor, which is his name is Reza, means the one who Allah is pleased with, God is pleased with. Where a Christian,
I know a Reza. I know someone named Reza who is Muslim.
yeah, well, one of my cousins' name is Reza. Anyway, but he was a lot of Christians and Jews and everyone would come and sort of have a talk with him, conversation, and he would reply and he would ask as well. So what one incident was, he asked one of the Christians, he said, what is it about Jesus that makes you put him in this sort of a status of a godly status, I would say, right? A high status. So he says, well, Jesus for us, he raised the dead, he was able to cure the blind, he walked on water, and so many of his miracles that he listed, he did all this, right? And so then his reply is, well, Prophet Joseph also did all those things as well. You know what I mean? So he didn't even go back as in terms of like where he was born from, the similarities to Adam, for example. He said, well, these prophets were also being able to do these things. Even Muhammad did it. Even Moses did all these, splitting of the sea. And those are all miracles. And that's when, for him, he was not able to then continue on with the conversation because it made him think a little bit. So we've had those sort of incidents where we can go, like you said, back and forth a lot with this stuff.
Oh, you could go forever.
It's just a matter of actually accepting all of these, whether it was Muhammad, whether it was Jesus, Moses, whether it was David, whoever it was, we can come to a conclusion to say they were great individuals. They were people who look at how many millions and billions of people follow their teachings, are coming together as one even, are showing the same message and practicing love and mercy and kindness, because we have a beautiful quote that I wanted to actually share that could really sum up this whole conversation is Imam Ali, which is successor of the Prophet. He said, we are either brothers in religion or belief or faith, or we are brothers in humanity, right? So it's really, religion is not to exclude people from it. Religion is to actually become more included with one another, learn from one another. And that's why God really even says, I've created these cultures and differences between you so that you may go and become humble and grateful and learn from each other and gain knowledge and increase your intellect.
Yes, and I find it interesting because the more I read about Ali, right? Is he the Prophet Ali? How do I refer to him?
Imam. We call him
Imam Ali.
The commander of the faithful. He's the only one who has that title, but yeah, we refer to him as Imam as well. Yeah.
Okay, so I'll do Imam Ali. And again, I don't want to insult you, but when I read his words and what he writes, he sounds so much more beautiful than Muhammad does. Whenever I'm reading the text,
well, I'll give you
the way he speaks is gorgeous. Like, it's very, very friendly. It's nice. It's loving. He's speaking about unity and everyone coming together. And then you read the Quran, which is obviously, it's not technically Muhammad's words, right? It's technically Gabriel's words to Muhammad. The Hadith is really Muhammad's words as interpreted and scribed by those around him.
So the reason that you may have this idea about Muhammad instead of Ali is because Ali has been interpreted more from the Shia sect, because we believe in him, while Muhammad has been character assassinated by the other sects in order to make him look. So Muhammad in their sect is a prophet who is suicidal, a prophet who is delusional, a prophet who doesn't know what he's saying. He is all of these sorts of ideas that you would not find in an infallible. For us, Muhammad is infallible, clear of all of this, similar to other prophets as well. So is Ali and the other successors. And whatever you hear from Ali is from the Prophet himself, because what he has is from the Prophet. And whatever you get from the Prophet is from God himself as well. So if you dig deep into trying to really follow this Shia sect side of it, you will realize the beauty of it, and you'll clear out a lot of things. Yeah,
I have. It's really interesting because, and it's hard to see it, right? Because 85% of Muslims are Sunni, right? And only 15% are Shia Muslims. And so it's hard to see it because obviously the plurality of texts comes from the Sunni side. But if you actually dig into the Shia, it's honestly, a lot of it is the teachings and the things that are spoken about and how to live a good life, etc., is almost inseparable from Catholicism and Christianity. All right, so after a small technical glitch, we're getting into section 2. I think we rattled on enough probably about section 1 in any case. And so that was familiar fruits. There are a lot of things that are similar. While the camera was off and we were discussing, we said we've got to set up just a studio so we can both be in the same spot. And I love that idea, and I'm definitely planning on doing it. But we'll get on to section 2 now. And section 2 is Islam a religion of peace, or only a religion of peace for the believer? And I'll do a preface on this on my opinion from what I've seen, and I'm going to split the two, okay? Because we've been speaking about the separation between Sunni and Shia Muslims. And so I would say that at a majority, it is a religion of peace for the believer. And the reason that I probably come to this conclusion is that I find the Islamic faith to be rather much more physical than spiritual when it comes to the faith at a majority. And so what that means from my perspective is that we honestly believe the same thing, technically, but we do not as Catholics, we do not pass the judgment down. And so we say that at the pearly gates, at the gates of heaven, God will make the judgment as to whether you were, whether you lived a life of peace or of morality, of faith in Christ, of faith in God, to allow yourself into or to be accepted by God into heaven. And so that's where we are linked with that idea of, because you did mention earlier peace, and that peace means submission to the will of God, and we agree with that. We're exactly the same, that free will doesn't mean you can go and kill whoever you want. Free will means you are free to choose to do the right thing. And so I would say that at the majority, the issue is that Islam in practice across the world has tried to play God and has tried to say, you are not believing the way that we are told to believe, you are not practicing the way that you are told to practice, and we are going to pass judgment on you. And as such, we will put jizya on you, we will submit you, we will force you to believe through fear and the sword, as a lot of people would claim it. So that's my stance, and I'd love to hear how you see it. If you can give both perspectives, obviously you can't speak directly to the Sunni Muslim part, but from the Shia perspective, what you actually believe as a Shia Muslim.
Well, to start this off, Islam itself, although it is a religion of peace, promotes peace and encourages peace as a first and foremost ideology, not just between Muslims, but also the whole world, whoever is in there, whether they are Muslims or practicing or not, it does not matter. Islam itself means submission, and Muslim means someone who submits. It is roots from the same sort of linguistics here. So in terms of being able to say if it's just peace for the believer, we have to go back to what we are as human beings in the first place. There's a narration of when, as we mentioned about intellect before, so God created humans with intellect and desire, and he created angels with only intellect, and then he created animals with only desire. So we are taught that if human beings are able to use their intellect and overcome desire, they will become higher than the angels. But if on the other way around, in contrast, they actually use their desires and go more towards that, then they will become lower than the animals. This is not to insult these creatures. This is just to get an idea of where we stand on the sort of hierarchy of everything. So peace, in Islam, it has been mentioned in the Quran itself to never ever attack anyone. And we are not the ones who first attack. We're not allowed to do that. Every war and battle that has gone by in history, everything else, if you have followed it by the prophetic way, the Islamic way, or even I would say the other ways of religion of Christianity and Judaism, but they all sort of root in the same cause. We are taught to never ever sort of attack first. Allow the enemy or whoever else, like if they want to attack or anything like that, you are to defend yourself. So that's why in everything that has been going on, even the battle, I want to mention the battle of Karbala, which happened in Iraq, which was the grandson of the Prophet, one of the biggest and most saddest massacres. I encourage everyone to research on this one because it's for humanity itself, not just for Muslims, is that he was martyred with his children, with his family members, with his army of only 72, which is the most authentic, and against 30,000 people in the enemy's army. But he never started the war first. He never went and laid the first attack. Similar, his grandfather, his father, and all the other successors, all the other prophets, even the first war during the earlier prophets as well, they never were the ones who started the war first, who went to attack first. So this whole ideology, even when the Prophet would go, a lot of the fabrication that have happened is he's gone to war and things like that. People love to see this bravery and this courage. No, these bravery and courage characteristics come more from a mental state. It's more from how you can handle situations as a man, and or even as a woman in certain situations. So the Prophet would never go to fight with them. In history, you've always seen that the opposite side has come first, or if he has gone, it wasn't to fight, it was to invite them, it was to help and guide them in a way of religion. Some of them had no religions, and the Prophet would go or send some of his representatives to go and sort of help guide them and raise this awareness of the oneness of God, you know. And when they didn't accept, he would not start war with them. He would not go and be aggressive. He would not retaliate. Instead, we have the event which is called Mubahila. So this is where the Prophet went to, I believe it was the Christians. He went, it was an event where he was trying to invite them to the religion, and so they were not going to do it. Obviously, they both had their own belief system there. So what did he say? He said, okay, tomorrow we will do an event of Mubahila. You bring yourselves, you bring your sons, and you bring your women, and we will do the same. So these, the opposite side, they thought, oh, there's going to be a big battle. What's going to happen? And they're going to come into it. And the next day comes, all of a sudden they see from afar, the Prophet has brought his daughter Fatima, he brought his two grandsons, Hassan and Hussein, and he's brought his cousin, which is also the first Imam, Imam Ali alayhi salam. So alayhi salam means peace and blessings towards them. So he's only brought his household, his family. This in itself sent a message that we are not here to fight. We're not here to create conflict between another. Yet we're here to create peace. We are here to create this unity amongst us. And that is when then the other side, they saw what happened, and because they had an army prepared, like obviously they were not trying to fight either. Back then it was a very peaceful sort of conversational thing, even though they had some army and things like that, but the people were not generally there to fight. They were just there to more debate and have a conversation and guide and invite. So when they saw this, he only brought his family and not a big army they were expecting. This is when they really saw the true character of the Prophet as well, that he's here for peace. He's not here for any of this. Obviously, despite not still accepting the invitation, the Prophet still said, okay, fine, you know, we are not going to be a religion that we force people to come to it. He never ever forced anyone, because why? Our religion is not accepted, and the practices are not accepted, whether you pray, whether you fast, whether you pay charity, whatever you do, it's not accepted if it's forced. It's not accepted if you're not doing from the love of your heart, for the sake of God himself. So for that to be able to do, you have to gain that intellect, you have to gain that love towards God himself. You have to know who he is first. Who are you doing these practices for? So I would say it's not just for the believer. This peace of Islam it came to spread it all around, to show even if you don't believe, this is the kind of religion we are. We are not here to force you. We are not here to send an army towards you. We're not here to interrogate you in any way or force you into anything you don't want to be forced in. We are a religion of peace and submission. Means that God wants only the good for you. He wants you to follow what's good, and he wants you to forbid from what's evil. That's the whole lifestyle that we're all here for. You know, at the end of the day, all the other prophets that came before him gave similar messages. They were brought and sent down to send the message of oneness of God and the love of God. Even we have an actual incident conversation that God tells Moses and Aaron. He says, and even Prophet David, he says to them to spread my love towards the people, like show my love and things. And then they asked him, oh God, how could we do this? He said, tell them the favors I have done towards them. And truly, the other day I was actually thinking about this, the favors that God does towards us, you know, how he answers our prayers from sources we never expect. He sort of helps us out in daily lives. He saves us from things that we don't even know about. He takes care of us even while we sleep, even when we're in another country or doing a difficult task, whatever it is, he's protecting us. He's doing all
Yes.
these favors, the food we have on the table, the salaries we get from our job, the blessings that come day and day and after day. These are the favors of God. And truly, when you think about it, it makes you fall more in love towards God himself.
Yes. And I have to say when you look at the Quranic texts, there are many instances of very, very peaceful behavior by Muhammad, and it is actually shocking because obviously when you're non-Muslim, you get taught all of the scary things about Muslims and Islam, and you don't see the good things, and you can see that there was an attempt by Muhammad to always try to be peaceful in initial meetings, trying to spread his message, right? And I think that where I struggle with it is that I'm not sure if you believe in the metaphor of the fruits, right?
Mhm.
And or even the story of the fruits, and that you will know them by their fruits and what comes out of it. And so I do have to ask the question that if Muhammad's message was so peaceful, so loving, so negotiated, right? And to an extent, you see a lot of that in the Quran. You see a lot of really, really good negotiation skills, peace deals, etc., that are garnered upon his march and his marches across Arabia, and I don't understand how we get from that to today's world, where almost everywhere that Islam spreads or attempts to spread, and all throughout history, there is murder, there is persecution, there is subjugation of the people, there is unequal taxes for believers and non-believers. And so I'd love an explanation as to how, at least I would assume from your perspective, those texts have been, I would say, probably manipulated in order to allow for this to happen.
So this is where then the root cause of all of this corruption that is happening, specifically in the religion of Islam, is because it has come when people have not followed what the Prophet ordered them. Before the Prophet was going to depart this world and he was martyred by poison, what happened was, after his last pilgrimage in Hajj, he gathered people in this area near Saudi Arabia. It's a big flat plain of field, and it's like a desert. It's hot. He kept them there. It was over 120,000 people, all coming from the pilgrimage. He gathered them because God ordered them to send down your last message. He kept them there for 3 days so they can all gather. And then he made a pillar from the sort of the things that they would carry, the belongings they had, just so he could go up on a pedestal and everyone can see him. He raised the hand of his cousin, Imam Ali, who will then become his successor of the religion. He said, after me, God has ordered me to appoint him as your leader. He will be taking care of all the matters of religion. He will continue this message and help guide people where needed. And he said, today I perfected this religion. And he said, am I not a leader in front of you? Am I not a trustworthy person? Everyone agreed, yes, you are. He said, so whoever's leader I am, after me is going to be Ali. He raised his hand. Everyone saw this. This is both in Sunni books, Shia books. This is evident there, and it's authentic. So as a result, after the martyrdom of the Prophet, then there were certain ignorant people who were close to the Prophet at the time, but after his martyrdom, they became ignorant, and they were still ignorant. They would run from battles, they would be coward, they would question the Prophet, they would call him delusional. So these were the people that then went and organized this voting sort of thing where they would vote for who's going to be the leader after Muhammad. But then they said, but he's already appointed a leader. Why do you guys do this kind of stuff? They wanted power. They wanted this high status. They wanted corruption. They wanted to do things and use religion in order to gain their own worldly desires, pretty much. And that's why, as a result, when they became that leader, even though they were not chosen, they started the bloodshed, they started oppression, they started killing, they started fabricating narrations and hadith. They started to even burn hadith. They actually stopped. Not only that, what's shocking is they started to change the practices of how the Prophet taught everyone the religion, how to pray. That's why you see people praying with their hands tied. Some are hands open, some are under the on the stomach, for example. These different types of prayers and these different types of practices came into it, which were not part of religion at all. They entirely changed the religion itself. And that's why today you see those people that are following those leaders as well, they have been reading these fabricated narrations and interpretations of the Quran. And that's why, so you get these bad ideologies about Islam, you get the fear, you get the killing, you get the bloodshed. We're actually told in the Quran, if you kill one innocent person, it's like you've killed the whole of mankind. And if you
Hmm.
save one person, it's like you've saved the whole of mankind. This is the weight it has on human life. So to go and take human life just like that, without any purpose, without any reason, or even at all, you have no right over their life. It's God that chooses when they die and when they leave. We don't have that right. Yet, because of who they've been following, the leaders that corrupted the religion, is now why we have this fear and bad image and reputation of Islam in itself. And
Wow.
we can go in detail, but this is pretty much summary of it. Yeah.
Wow. I mean, I mean the story of Islam, and I had this conversation with my brother once. I like to do this thing when I'm debating, where I will steel man or straw man an argument, which is basically like, even if I don't believe something, right? So like someone could ask me a question about transgenderism, and they'll be like, I hate transgenderism, I hate all this stuff, it's very silly, it's very bad. And even me, who is like antithetical to that ideology, I'll try and say, well, but what about this idea? And what about this idea? And what about that idea? And my brother and I were speaking about Islam. And I said, it's funny because the way that I see Islam is like Christianity's younger brother. So you've got to remember that Islam is 500 years younger than Catholicism and Christianity. I said, so if you look at the way that Christianity and Catholics existed 500 years ago, we weren't very kind people. As a majority, and I mean, I would say from my perspective, we were a little bit nicer. But I mean, over the course of the last 200 to 500 years, right, we had the Inquisitions, we had the harems, right? Not the harems. The harems are a prostitution ring. I forgot what it's called now. The burning of witches, right?
Yeah.
The burning of witches, right? So we had some pretty shaky stuff in history, and some popes who were a little bit, they enjoyed the plenary indulgences, and if you give 20,000 gold coins to the church, you'll definitely make it to heaven. So we had our own questionable things, and that's where I see that Islam is today. So I think the question would be, do you think, because we went through a big reformation, do you think that Islam could reform? That as a majority, right, we still have crazies. We still have people who do insane stuff, but they are so antithetical to the central doctrine of Christianity and Catholicism that everyone sort of just lets it go and says, this guy doesn't follow Jesus. Is there a way that we could reform Islam to have one central doctrine, one central leadership that we can all point to and say that guy's word is the law given by God, and it is inspired obviously by the texts of Muhammad? Is that possible?
Yes, it is. Definitely there is. And that is why that after the Prophet, the successions started. Despite them not being on the leadership board, it did not mean their rights were taken away from them. They were still the leaders of and the true representatives of the religion as well. And that's why we have these recurring texts that even come down from them so as to preserve it. Because even God says in the Quran, He's like, this is a book and a religion that people will try to come and fabricate and destroy and try to lead it in a way where it benefits them. But we will ensure that it is preserved and the message is not lost. And that is why, despite the fact that the majority are following the fabricated ways, it still has the ways of the minority that are following the right ways. And that's why the successor is still alive. The 12th successor, the Mahdi, he is the descendant of the Prophet, the guided one, the one that is already guided. He is the one that is alive right now. He's here. He's what we call a major occultation, which he will then reappear. Why is he in occultation? Because there have been so many times and incidents with his past predecessors that the people have tried to kill them, they try to remove them, they try to poison them or martyr them, and we see that in history. And even with this person as well, with him, there have been about 11 to 12 fake Mahdis that people have killed already, thinking it's him, but it's not. They've just been people either pretending to be him or whatnot.
Right.
So yes, he is the one leader that everything goes towards him. If you want the
Yes.
real true thing, that is like Jesus, for example. Jesus is he will come back. We believe that he'll come back, yes. And when we look at Christianity, yes, there are people that are represented at this stage right now, and whether they are right or they are wrong, or whether some of them are trying to benefit the religion from themselves, similar to Islam, that we have bad and good leaders as well. So the one person you can really direct people to is Jesus himself. Similar with us, we can direct everyone straight to the teachings of the 12th successor, who in itself is bringing the teaching of Muhammad and reforming and reestablishing it and exposing the ignorance and bringing that peace and harmony, just as it was filled with oppression and bloodshed and injustice, pretty much. Yeah.
Yes. That to me brings me hope. I don't know how it happens, but there is a generalized fear across pretty much the entire Western world right now about Islam and the rise of Islam. I'm sure you've been, or you might not have, you might not be interested in American politics, but there's a guy named Zohran
Yes.
Mamdani who's trying to
Mayor of New York, he is, I
yes,
think.
become the mayor of New York, and the fear is just next level. I mean, it is wild, and I mean, even if you look into it, it does scare you. I mean, I made a video speaking about the, as I mentioned earlier, the ANIC, right? So that's the Imams Council, and you mentioned to me that that's mostly Sunni Muslims. They instituted a fatwa council.
Yeah.
Right. And so fatwa, as far as I can tell, seems to be religious direction most of the time. And then at some point, it just becomes a full Sharia court. It's through history, it always ends up becoming like you get a full Sharia court when Islam becomes a majority within the country. It just, or at least a plurality, because it seems like a tipping point for a lot of nations seems to be between 30 and 40% Muslims. It just becomes a Muslim country after that. It's effectively just Muslim, and then the population starts to be persecuted after that. And so I think that we need to find a way, and it's tough for me. I mean, I'm a Catholic. I'm very involved online. I'm like just looking for stuff, and I never see anything from Muslims evangelizing. Right, like in Catholicism and Christianity, we have this sect of, I guess, religious lay people, religious clergy who do something that we call evangelizing, which is go out into places where you are not welcome, where you may be murdered, where you may be ridiculed, where your message may not be accepted, and try and spread the gospel, try and spread the good news. And I don't see any of that from Muslims. Is there an element that I've just not seen of trying to actually spread the faith, or is it more of a bring people in who have been taught from other countries and then just have families of like 50 children, and then eventually you just become the biggest population?
No, in terms of so one thing we have to really be mindful of, everything, even every religion itself, it will have its goods and bads. Who makes it good and bad is the people. As soon as it becomes the opinion of people, as soon as it becomes a practice that people advertise, that is when religion can be corrupted. We see every religion, like for example, because we're talking about Islam. Islam is a perfect religion, but it's the people that make it imperfect. It's the people's opinion that bring all these ideologies into it. Why? Because they begin to have their own interpretations. And that's why God then sends these appointed leaders, because only they can interpret it in the way that it's supposed to be interpreted. If it was going to be just handed over to people, then that religion, I don't even think I would follow a religion that is humans, made by humans and the opinions of humans in general. And so that's why that's one aspect that plays a part into it. Another aspect that plays a part into it is social media, the news, and all these other sources that we get it from, which can manipulate our minds and brainwash us into thinking whatever they want us to think, whether it be religion of Islam, whether it be about a school shooting, whether it be about anything else, whatever the news headlines wants you to know, that's how they will manipulate that news. That's another aspect that we can see. That's why it's called channels and programs. It's programming us in the ways that they would like.
Ah,
And that's
that's
why
very
it's,
smart. I like that. Yeah, that's good.
and we have to realize to go out of our own way. And that's why I love this type of conversation, is that we really sit and we really get it from the people we're supposed to. People who have studied it, people who are experts of it, people who sit down and really accept it in a respectful way and have a conversation about it, rather than or being defensive or offensive towards one another. So these
Yeah.
are important to really go get the answers from the right sources, rather than being brainwashed by media and things like that. And when you talk about fatwas, when you talk about all these Islamic states and ideologies of taking over the world, we are not taught to do things like that. It's not our job. We are not a prophet. We are not an imam. We are none of these people who have been given this job. Why? Because we are sinful people ourselves. We are not perfect ourselves. Only a perfect person can spread the religion that is got a message that is supposed to be perfect towards the lifestyle of a person and guide them in a way. So that's where the Sharia comes in. Sharia literally, it just means it's a path to moral, ethical, as well as a spiritual life. It means the path to water, like metaphorically, if you go towards it. But this literally just talks about having a prayer system, being honest, giving charity, being just. It's not really a legal punishment. And more importantly, to answer your question, it's not to be enforced on anybody. Like I mentioned about Islam, whatever ruling it is, it's not to be enforced. Whether we go into a Western country, right now I'm in Australia, I follow my religion, yes, but I still have to follow the laws and regulations and the policies and the procedures of the country itself. And even deeper than that, I still have to follow the policies and procedures of the places I work in, the schools I attend, for example, as a young child, or any other even churches or anywhere else, universities I might go. I cannot bring uh, or enforce my own thoughts and ideas and beliefs on somebody else. I can only help guide them, question their answers if I can, and sort of, it's more of a two-sided approach rather than me going. And this is where then the Sunni side comes in. The other sect comes into it, where they are more into, you gotta go spread it, you gotta go teach it. Yes, but in a manner where it's not becoming an attack towards people. It's not creating sort of an offensive fear towards people, you know? And at the
Yes.
end of the day, you leave a choice for others. You leave a choice of what they believe. If they are convinced or if they want to, first of all, they'll be guided. They'll come. God says in the Quran, I will guide whom I will. So whether we go and whether we go and do all this stuff, God will still guide whom he wills. A person that asks God to guide him, he will be guided either
Yes.
way at the end of the day.
Man, I really enjoy it. I like that. I think that fulfills the precepts of a lot of the things that almost all religious people believe, is that my faith is mine and I will live my life this way. I will tell you how I believe you should live your life, but I will not make you do it. If you come to me and say, I've done this or I want to do this, I will give you my opinion on that.
Yeah.
But it doesn't mean that I'm going to, force you or stop you or, do anything like that. Look, this is a way to live a very good, happy life. If you do these things, then you will be happy. I can tell you that right now. If you subject yourself, as you were saying, if you subject yourself to the peace of knowing that it is not your decision, but it is the decision of God, that this is the way that you live your life, and this is how you get up in the morning. And I mean, you can take it down to, I wish I had someone still telling me how to dress. Like, I wish I still had a school uniform, because that gave me a direction, right? I didn't have to pick out what I was wearing every morning. And I'm jealous of priests because they get to wear the same black robe every day. It's you know exactly what you're wearing each day. But it is, I think that there is an element that, and I think I might have to ask this question. It might be a bit of a rough question. It is, if you were a non-Muslim today, would you allow a Sunni Muslim into this country?
I think I have to really put myself in as a non-Muslim. Are you talking specifically? Give me a
Catholic.
religion.
Let's say Catholic. Let's say Catholic. Yeah.
Catholic. From the person that I am, I would see everything more, first of all, as who they are rather than what they believe in. Firstly, I think I would see it as in that.
Yes.
And as a Catholic, especially, we also should see that as an opportunity, that instead of seeing the negative side of something, maybe, which is still maybe, it's a possibility. It's not even, it's a likelihood. It's not even a certain point that by letting this person, corruption might come into the country. It's more a likelihood or an unlikelihood as well. It's a maybe. So that idea itself, I wouldn't really go with, because instead, in terms of thinking that, by this person coming, instead of thinking it in a negative perspective, I would be more like, it's my opportunity to perhaps show myself and what I believe in, and practice the religion that I practice, which might even influence him to be inspired by that. That's one thing. Another thing is that instead of what he believes in, just because I've got an ideology, a broad general ideology of fear inside my mind from this religion, instead of thinking like that, I would see him more as a person that's coming here rather than a Sunni. And that's where I say social media and the news has really embedded this idea in our mind of labeling people and being able to criticize before understanding them. I can tell you, and this also aligns with me as well, it resonates with me in the fact that before this conversation, or even when we go back to year 11, before that, before knowing me, you might have seen me walk into class, and I want you to think about that first impression of not even knowing me yet, not even knowing my name yet, and seeing me as that person, but you might know my belief. What kind of things would have gone in your mind, and vice versa? What kind of things would have gone in my mind, being the only Muslim boy in a school?
I did think that. I literally thought to myself, I was like, this guy must be terrified. I was like,
well, yeah.
And we're not just like a normal, we're not just like a diocesan Catholic school. Like, this was a Catholic school, like church every day, priests walking around, crosses everywhere. We're praying the Angelus twice a day. Like, it was intense.
Yeah. And I would join in the religion classes as well. I was there with you guys the whole time. And I remember John. Remember John?
Yeah.
He told me, he's like, when I saw you walk in, before anything, the way you looked, I thought you were fat under those clothes. You know what I mean? So it was an image of looking at me. But then he's like, later on, I found you're disease man or whatever it was. Someone who, would work out and stuff. So you just naturally look big.
Yes.
And I said, well, yeah, those are the misconceptions that we can give to ourselves. It's to not be that sort of have that mentality. And it's not our fault. Society's made it like that, unfortunately.
Yes.
Everything has become judgmental. Everything has become something before we know, before we understand. It's always good. Like we are taught in Islam. Again, I'm going back to the narrations of the Prophet from the Shia sect. He has said to give your believing brother or anybody around you 70, and I'm talking about 70 excuses before you judge him.
Yes.
And today's world, we don't even give that.
That's biblical too. That's biblical. That
beautiful.
How many times should I forgive my neighbor when he does me wrong? not 7. Is it 7 times in the Torah? It's 7. And Jesus says not 7, but 7 times 77, which in Judaism, 7 times 77 is actually a reference of infinity.
Well,
Yeah.
Beautiful. That's beautiful, because it's teaching us, all these religions, right, to even the infinity time or even the 70 time that we refer to. Both of these, it's pretty much a metaphoric way of saying to not judge at all. If you think about it. We won't be able to get to 70 because first we lose count. Secondly, we can hardly even start giving people one excuse, first of all. And those are
take
the things
take the log out of your own eye before you take the stick out of someone else's. And who among you is without sin, right? Cast the first stone as
the
well.
first stone. That's right. Yeah.
Exactly right. So I think that we're, and I'll answer the question for myself, I think, as well, because that's fair. You gave a very, very, very philosophical answer, and I really did like it. And my answer would be, and I'll upscale a little bit. I think my answer would be, I would bring in a Shia Muslim without even thinking about it, without even a question. I think that if someone told me I'm Sunni Muslim, I would question it. I would say, I know the fruits of the labor of Sunni Muslims, practicing Sunni Muslims. I've seen it from at least the videos I've seen from overseas, the accounts. I mean, we know what is happening at the moment in North Africa, and there is some terrible things that can come out of that ideology. And the fear that I have is that you don't know when it starts, because you can be peaceful, and then let's just say at 30% in Australia, and this is all speculation, right? Let's just say at 30% Muslims in Australia, someone in parliament says, this is getting too big, they're getting too loud, we've got to go attack them. We've got to go stop them from growing, we've got to go do something that could be perceived as a threat. By the Islamic texts, the Muslims can go and attack back as a form of defense, right? Defend themselves from that. And so it could be anything that could be assumed. And that's where I struggle, is because the teachers of the faith have bastardized some of the language and taken one clip, but not taken the second clip that says only do this if, right? Put it into context, and they use that as their reference. I find it difficult until there is a reformation, as we mentioned earlier, with a central core belief system. And if this, then this, if this, then this, if this, then this, then I would struggle to continue to bring in practicing Sunni Muslims into this country and feel safe about it. And I think that, and I was going to bring this up in a separate episode, but it's funny that we say Islamophobia, right? The fear of Muslims. That's the actual word. What it means when you say it means hatred of Muslims, but the actual word is Islamophobia. And to an extent, I think that a lot of people who are not Muslim probably have that, including me. And that could be a consequence of, like you said, right, the channels, right, the programming. But we also see it in the evidence from overseas. And how do we know it's not coming here? How do we know? How can we be sure?
The evidence that we see uprising and overseas can only be described in a way and linked to them as people and individuals, or that can uprise in the name of themselves. They just use the name of Islam as a way to propagate their message. Islam does not teach that stuff. So I might, for example, just be somebody who doesn't practice anything. I might be an atheist, for example, but I can get up tomorrow and spread a message over a period of time and call myself a Jew instead, or for example, any other religion that you might list. I could choose that. And that could be the core of my message, to, instead of people looking at me as spreading this hate, they look at the belief that I'm trying to spread it under. So there's a lot of risks and threats that is even outside of the Muslim world that we can see that are just as concerning, I would say, in this thing, like killing 70,000 innocent children and women, for example. that have not done anything, and for me, I don't judge that based on the belief they have. For me, I judge that based on the political system, based on power, based on hatred, based on trying to gain certain things, and based on the worldly desires, just like it has always been in history. It's the desires that make people go blind to the point where the prophet says that you will commit a sin so many times that it it doesn't even feel like a sin anymore to you.
Yes, I feel that.
And
Yeah.
yeah, so that's why we, like Muslims, also see this, whether it's Sunni, Shia. We also see other concerning things that's outside of our religion. And we say, well, that we fear those kind of people as well, because at the same time, but the difference that is that we see them as individuals and certain groups of people rather than what they believe in or what they represent. Why? Because we've been victimized to that ourselves. So we know what it feels like to wrongly be labeled as something that is fearful when we are not. I have actually a lot of Sunni friends. I have a lot of Sunni friends, and I've been friends with them for years and years. And some of them I even known since birth, for example. And they have the most beautiful hearts, the most beautiful of characteristics and families and whatnot. I even am in touch with them here and there. They work with me in some places, some fields. We work together. We
Yes.
work together with atheists. I work together with atheists. I work together with an LGBTQ member, for example. And before seeing them as their religion, the reason I don't is because I always say, look, the belief and the religion is always perfect. It's the person that executes it wrong, or it's the person that tries to represent it is the one that's wrong, because we just have to categorize them as individuals of who they are. So necessarily, I wouldn't be fearful of a Sunni person or atheist or LGBTQ or someone else coming into countries or Western world, because sometimes it's been the Western media that has labeled them in that way, while trying to cover other aspects of things that are much more concerning, much more important, for example, that are like, I guess, more dangerous to people living in the West or in developing countries for that matter. And so that's why I think, yeah, if we change our mindsets and not allow, this is why it's important to go directly to the source rather than having to just hear something that we don't see or hear ourselves right then and there, and we know the backstory of it. It's never a good idea to, I guess, conclude our ideology based on that, I'd say. Yeah.
Yes. And I'm going to make 2 points on that. One of them is definitely going to be offensive, and I'm so sorry in advance. So, taking secondhand sources and people who weren't actually there, isn't that the entire Quran?
No, the Quran, that's why then this also leads to the other sect that has made it seem like that. But the Quran was there at the time of the Prophet. So every revelation came to the Prophet, every interpretation, every meaning, everything that the Prophet did. That's why he took Ali under his wing.
And
Ali
over
was
23 years. Over 23 years.
Ali was not only the first person to submit and become a Muslim and submit to his message, he was also the one to succeed this message.
Yes.
And that is why this has been passed down as to not be fabricated, as to be preserved. This is what God means by preserving my message. It has been specifically this. Ali has been with the Prophet his whole life, the whole time that he was a prophet and a messenger, with every revelation he got, so that these exact same wordings and interpretations are carried out throughout history, and it's made sure that it's from a primary source.
Yes. I mean, I find, and I had to ask that question because it popped into my head, and I said, let me offend the Muslim. I said, why not?
That's the beauty of it. When you get to it, we have the answers. We have the answers.
That's where the questions. I think that's where the questions, and obviously, I disbelieve the answer, but that's because it's a pure faith claim, right? It is very hard to prove the pure faith claim that the Quran was given to God, but I'm also not going to ask for the proof that it was the word of God, because
easiest ways to look at other religions in the first place as well. How could we tell those are, divine? How could we tell, for example, the David's book or Moses' book or Jesus' book, for example? How could we tell those messages are divine? How can we even tell Adam existed? How could we
Yes.
tell all this? Yes, scientifically there are certain things like that, but then also science also goes towards the Quran as well. And there was things that the Quran has mentioned 1400 years ago that could not have been possible to find out at then and that age without those equipments, while science has just found that out recently nowadays, for example. That's
Is
how
there
we
an
can count.
example of that? I've never heard that before.
There's a lot of examples. There's the things that is in the belly of the bee. That's one of the miracles. If you read more about that, it's mentioned in the Quran. It's talking about sperm. How would anybody know about, for example, the sperm and the womb and the fetus and all these things without? They did not have these tools and equipments back then. They did not have it. They had the medical knowledge to an extent, but there's nothing you can know. For example, how would someone know that someone said, an atheist said, I don't see God, I don't believe in God because I don't see him. So someone said, when you have do you have a brain? He said, yeah, I have a brain, but have you seen it? No, I haven't seen it.
Yes.
How do you?
All right, so more technical issues. I think that this Riverside might be telling us that we're explaining too many amazing things. We're saying too much good stuff. It can't handle all of the information that we're giving it. But we're going to fly directly into point 3 now. You mentioned earlier about the 70,000 dead and the other ideologies in the world that are creating harm on the world, and not only the ideologies, but and this specific ideology, but other ideologies that are being spread by other religions and other sects, right?
Right.
But we'll focus in on Israel first and the Gaza Israel war, the plight of the Palestinians, and what's happening there. I'm just going to give my take quickly, give your take briefly, and we're not going to dig too deeply. We're not going to try and discuss who's right, who's wrong on this one. I think we're too far removed to be able to make a serious claim from our perspectives. We're not there. But we'll just share our perspective so we know where we're coming from in a resolution sort of way. Our ideas on how peace could be achieved and how an end to conflict can happen in that region. So my perspective on it is that I believe that Hamas is the major issue in the region. And now Hamas was obviously instituted as the governing force in that region. It's not the only, I guess, military governing force inside the region of Palestine. There are other sort of political elements, but they've been there now for approximately, I think it's about 15, 16 years as the head of the authority inside of Gaza. The way that I see it is this: the evidence of the tunnels that exist, the evidence of the way that Hamas has operated within this conflict points to the fact that it is very, very likely that they are using their own civilians as human shields, which I know is antithetical to everything that the Islamic text says about never shedding the blood of innocents, never creating war themselves or forcing war themselves or conflict themselves. Now, Hamas started this conflict. A lot of people will say, and again, this is from my perspective, a lot of people will say that the occupation warranted Hamas to go in and attack Israel. Hamas started the conflict. Israel's incursion into Gaza to kill Hamas has without a doubt killed more Gazans than Israelis. And from that perspective, you would say that Israel is wrong in that. A good source that I've been listening to recently, his name's Konstantin Kisin. He put it really, really well, and he basically said that the fact that you lose more people in war or more people die on one side than on the other does not automatically incite a guilty verdict. It does not automatically say Israel is worse because more people died on the Palestinian side than on the Israeli side. From my perspective, Israel had to go into Gaza to try and kill as many Hamas operatives as humanly possible in order to re-establish a peaceful border. Now, in bombing 70,000 people into rubble, into ground, into obliteration, and effectively destroying all of the infrastructure, they have committed some of the most difficult to watch videos on earth. I think that a lot of that has to do with the way that Hamas themselves have actually conducted this war by ensuring that most of their military equipment is hidden underneath civilian areas. And I think that the other thing that I find problematic is the way that the Gazan media has portrayed the suffering, which we only found out yesterday, actually, from the UN, that the UN said there was never starvation inside of Gaza. And so I think that if I was to quantify the decision by Israel to go in, I would say that it was the correct decision. And I think I'll leave it there. I'm not going to make a judgment as to whether everything they've done in this conflict has been correct. I don't think it has been. But I think I'll leave my opinion there. I think that's given you enough to work off to understand where I'm coming from. But the finality of my point will be that all human suffering is terrible, and I wish it had never happened. And I wish peace upon those who have passed away in Gaza.
Yes, in terms of this, the only thing that I can really say is there is a narration, and this could be taken in any way possible. I'm more referring to innocent lives. My concern is not about those who choose their desires in the world, but rather the innocent that sort of don't have the value of life that they need and lose that sort of opportunity of life itself, and how lightly it's taken and it's become more of a number rather than something that we're supposed to all have, which is the significance, like the value itself. So I would just say a narration of the three types of oppression that exists is one is, and this is from Islamic perspective, is one is an oppression between God and man himself. This is an oppression that God can forgive because it's between him and Allah. They can, he can repent certain sins that he's done. Second type of oppression is that God does not forgive, and that is the one that associating, we call shirk, we call partnership and things like that to God. That's another oppression. And the third one is one that God does not let go. And this type of oppression is more linked to what you do, the oppression that you do towards people, especially innocent people. Why God doesn't let this one go on the day of judgment is because now it's not between you and him anymore. Now it's between hurting his creation. Now it's between taking certain lives, whether any life it could be, any belief it is, any country it is, it does not matter. Innocent life is innocent life, and it's all valued. It's not up for us to take, and it's not ours either. Nothing belongs to us in this world. Everything belongs to God. We don't even belong to ourselves. And so this is the oppression, the last one that God does not let go, which is towards his creation. And I'd have to just, say it in that way to summarize the whole thing.
Yeah, I mean that's a very I love that from a spiritual perspective. I think that it undoubtedly summarizes the way that this conflict has been, I guess, managed by both sides. And I am concerned about where it goes from here. And my proposition for peace on this is probably a little bit left of field, and probably not going to be accepted by everyone. Probably no one. We'll see. We'll see how I go. I do believe that the state of Israel has proven in its history that within its borders it can maintain healthy coexisting relationships between secular people, between Jews, between Christians and Catholics, and between Muslims, both in the both Muslims in the religious sense and Muslims in the secular sense, because the Arab nations, the Arabs who live within Israel have also had a very good life inside of Israel, and a peaceful life to a majority of the extent. And so I do believe that my theory on how peace exists within that region is a two-way street. I believe that Gaza being just sort of isolated away from the rest of Palestine where it is makes no sense. I believe that there should be land taken from the border where the West Bank is out of Israel, and that the Gazan population should be moved into that area so that they can be governed by the entire PA, which is the Palestinian Authority, right? At least the West Bank has maintained a sort of peace between Israel and itself, even throughout the majority of this conflict. There's been some rocketry, right? There's been some fireworks going across borders, but to an extent, they've maintained some sort of peace. And a lot of people don't understand that. So it's really good. It's really good if you get out a map and try and have a look at it. But the way that Gaza exists is that Israel is here, and then Gaza is like this little tiny sliver. It's like the size of Malta. And that's personal for me because I'm Maltese. It's like the size of Malta. And then the actual Palestine is sort of like another sliver off to the right-hand side of that. They're separated. They're not actually conjoined. And I find that really problematic for the people of Gaza. So I think that we need to take equivalent, if not majority, if not more land from Israel and conjoin those two locations so that people can live side by side. I think that a corridor needs to be created from the West Bank out to the ocean, or the sea, so that they have access to the ocean that is secured by Israel. Israel has to be the predominant military force in that area. And I think there needs to be a demilitarization. I don't see how peace is, I guess, progressed any other way, at least for the next 20 to 40 years, while this generation who now has seen the death of their fathers, the death of their mothers, it doesn't matter what we do for the next 20 to 40 years, these kids are going to grow up just broken. And so there needs to be some serious thought put into how do you conjoin these two nations in a peaceful way for the next 20 to 40 years while maintaining the cultural identity of those people as well.
Yeah, I mean, I reckon we gotta send Mark there to solve the thousands of years of corruption.
Oh, I could random guy from Australia could so totally do it.
Let's take him. I think best thing is to just in terms of, we both have the Messiah coming. We both have a purpose that they're going to be coming here for. And they're coming, just like the narration says, he will fill the earth with justice and harmony and peace, just as it was filled with oppression, disunity, injustice, and bloodshed and all these things. And there is none of us that can ever achieve or reach that level of peace that the divinely appointed leaders by God can only achieve, because they have been given that. This land, this earth, none of this, like I said, belongs to any of us to take or to give or to anything like it. It's a blessing. Everything is a blessing from God, and we must enjoy it, and we must learn to share it with one another. We must learn, just like food and all these other things. And those are the only ways that the message of God has been sent down to us, to really make better use of these kind of blessings, and not allow it to not allow ourselves to be overcome by these desires that is only going to be temporary at the end of the day. It's not going to last long, so why is there's no value in it? The most valuable thing that we can find is, this person interviewed this other guy. He said, I'll give you $10 million right now. He said, beautiful. He said, but the catch is you won't wake up tomorrow. He said, then I don't want it. He says, so that means your life is more valuable then this whole 10 million or whatever value you put, you
Yes.
can't put a value to it, you know? Yesterday it's a history, it's gone, it's the past. Today, you know, tomorrow we all know it's gonna be, whether it's gonna come, it's not gonna come. We should, the narration says, don't wake up that day thinking you're gonna be alive till the evening, you know? So we have to
Yes.
use every day and be thankful for it rather than be so mixed up in things that are just gonna bring nothing but hate and negativity, I reckon.
I agree. I definitely agree. And I think from, and I like that from the spiritual perspective, right? The spiritual perspective, it makes a lot of sense. It's just, basically it's the second commandment of Jesus, right? Which is love your neighbor as yourself.
Yourself, yeah.
Which is to me, it's treat everyone how you would want to be treated.
Yes.
And so I love that from the spiritual perspective. I think that I do think that it is incumbent on us as believers to pursue the path of the most good on this earth. And so from a spiritual perspective, that is encompassed by the entire, and this sort of links to the next section. From a spiritual perspective, that is encompassed within yourself and within your soul and what you can do by yourself. And then from the state perspective, right, from the governing perspective, how do we allow our core beliefs of love, peace, prosperity, goodness, grace to be shared with everyone? And so it's a fun one for me because I believe that a Christian state would be great, right? I reckon here's what we do. Here's the peace plan. No more Jewish religion, no more Islamic religion. Just put a bunch of Christians in there, and it'll all be fine. It'll all be good.
I'm joking.
I'm joking. That's silliness.
No, I get it. I understand. It's it's a funny idea to mention. I what can I say about these things? You know, at the end of the day, if you think, let's say you put Osama bin Laden and you put Hitler in there.
Where is this going?
I'm going to give you a comparison. And then you put me and you put you in there. Both different beliefs, yet similar to those two, I guess. I'm not similar to Osama, and you're not similar to Hitler, you know?
Yes.
Or for that matter, or Winston Churchill, for example, all of these people. Yet you see how it's not about putting those beliefs together, but rather those people and individuals that are really trying to do the best they can with that belief, you know? So you can see someone who's labeled as Muslim called Osama bin Laden, but he's not a Muslim. He represents not a single speck of Muslim and Islam. And then you got, for example, Hitler, who also has his own beliefs, yet he doesn't represent it, you know? So this is what it comes down to.
Hitler was technically an atheist.
Definitely, of course, atheists.
Yeah.
Every atheist after 2 minutes will become believing in something. Okay.
Yes.
But either way, I'm trying to say is more of like these different beliefs or no beliefs. It's more about the fact that the belief is perfect itself, the ideology and the system that has come with it.
I understand. Yes, yeah, that to me makes sense because that's the same way that we explain, right, the terrors that are done in the name of a certain religion. Is that we don't say that it's the religion itself that is flawed, right? And I, obviously, from my perspective, I do believe that Islam is flawed because I'm not a Muslim, right? So the precepts that allow you to believe it as fact, I don't have those precepts in my mind I see everything as antithetical to my faith to an extent. There are parts in it that are beautiful, don't get me wrong, like everything. It's like the LGBTQ people, right? LGBTQ to me, like the ideology makes no sense, but they create some of the nicest art on earth. Like they are all artistic people. They make some really, really, really good stuff. Like you go to the if you ever go to the city or to Newtown or anything like that, the walls have this gorgeous murals and really, really nice, like really pretty art that exists on the walls. And so you say it's not like the fruits of everything are perfect, right? It's not like the fruits of everything are all evil even. I think where I get stuck is just the fact that it's so many, right? I mean, I'm sure you have an opinion on Iran. I'm sure you have an opinion on Iraq, and there's only so much you can say about these things. I know. I mean, I have a very big opinion on the Vatican, right? Which I actually do not like the fact that the Vatican exists. I mean, Jesus as a state, I don't want it to be bombed or anything like that. And again, the art in there is beautiful. The history is beautiful. What they've created is beautiful. And I guess the Catholic faith needs a headquarters. But there is a lot of corruption when you put that many people in one spot and call it a state. I mean, it's a country in its own right. But I think my issue is with the ideology of Islam's fruits, or the fruits of them, the people who are taken, is that there's such a plurality. Like, Iran has done some terrible things as a state in the name of Muhammad. Iraq has done some terrible things as a state in the name of Muhammad. Obviously, we've just been speaking about Israel, and Hamas has done it in the name of Muhammad. Like, all of these Middle Eastern nations have done so many terrible things, and now we're talking about North Africa. And I would love to understand from your perspective as such a peaceful, good, conversationalist man, how do you see the path forward to eradicate the terrorism, the extremism that comes from Islam?
I think I'd have to refer back to the recurring things that I've been saying. Is the one thing I would really sum it up is just to say we need to, in the world, whoever it is, whether it's media, social media, society, whatever it is, religion, belief, I think if we just stop this idea of labeling, it will really, really help us. Why did all of this start in the first place? Few years back, if you look at it, it wasn't as big of a deal as it is today. Like, although it was still an ideology that was a seed, perhaps, but what was the seed? The seed was labeling, and sort of, in psychology, we have this system where if you say something so repetitively to somebody, they will believe that that is who they are. Like, you tell a person you're constantly bad every single day, or constantly every time you see them, slowly, no matter how much of a big confidence they might have, they'll start to believe that, because the body is channeled in a way where whatever you tell, it will start to adjust itself. It adjusts itself based on its environment, based on what you tell it, based on what you feed it. All these factors play into it. And that's why this idea of what we have today has been a seed that was only planted years and years back by people who knew what they were getting themselves into, and who all they wanted was to create this kind of division amongst the people in the world, whether it's with beliefs or anything else. And like I said, with us, we're never taught that division. We're always taught you either, brothers in faith or humanity. Either way, you have to be together. You have to unite. And unity does not always have to be religious unity. You can have your religion, but unite socially. Social unity is very important, and we all need it. Religious unity, just the ones who are practicing those religions can unite together. But either way you look at it, we still all have to come together. And to stop this, we need to stop labeling. Labeling is the number one cause, I believe.
I think I'll push back a little bit on that, only because I think that some stereotypes make sense. Like, there's a reason that we say that black people can't swim, right? And that's obviously not true for the majority of black people, but a plurality of them cannot swim. It's a reason we say that black people can dance really well, because a lot of them can dance really well, right? And so I think that I do think that we can't just explain away what has happened in the Middle East specifically by saying it's a label and it's the media, because there is a plethora of evidence that there has been, and I will premise it by, and I said this in the show the other day, that I wanted to try and separate the idea of an Islamist fundamentalist and a Muslim, right? So an Islamist fundamentalist who believes in using the text for their own good, and a Muslim who wants to learn about the text so that they can fulfill their purpose on this earth and please God, right? And please Allah. And to me, there are too many cases in our modern world where Islamic fundamentalism has led to the persecution, specifically in the Middle East. I mean, we can talk Iraq, we can talk Turkey, we can talk Syria, we can go back even further if you want, and end up at the Crusades, which is a whole nother conversation. And there is a pattern of violence that comes from Islamism and fundamental Islamism, which is allowed to continue through the book, right? They use the words of the book to try and they cut portions, right? It's all, a lot of it is dodginess, where they'll take like one line and then 2 lines later it says, well, actually, you should only do this if it's in the case of, something else has happened. But there's so many, and it's almost every nation. I mean, even let's talk Iran, because I think Iran makes probably the most sense to speak about from your perspective, because it is a Shia nation, if I'm correct. Is that correct?
I think just before going to Iran, I think the reason I think there's so many of that, don't we think that there is so many because there is more exposure and spotlight on that rather than, being everywhere else? For example, like, yes, at the end of the day, like I said earlier, people like that, they don't represent the religion at all. And that's why I mentioned labeling, because as soon as we see that, we know Islam doesn't do it. So I can't call him a Muslim. We can't call him that. So even when we go back in history, all these other types, for example, we cannot say it's who they are. It's Muslims. Because why? Because it's going against Islam. What goes against the religion? That means it's not from the religion. So then what do we label them as? What do we call them as? We call them as whatever else they are. We call them as extremists. We call them as terrorists. But it doesn't technically have to be linked to a faith, because faith never, ever promotes bloodshed. Faith has actually come to teach you the value of life, not to take it. This, like I said, this, like, you might have been more exposed to these certain things from the environment that you've been brought up, while for me, I was more exposed on the other side of it.
Yes.
Where I might see more, like, in contrast to what you might think. You know what I mean?
Yes.
I might see more of that. Because why? Because I've been more, but I would never ever, even when I was young, I would never say, oh, this is like this because, this group is coming from a Jewish group or a Christian group or things like that. I would say, why are these people doing this kind of stuff? Why are they trying
when it's not that religion.
And it was those kind of religions, so at the end of the day, these are the countries that represent these certain religions. Like, you might have a country that has other small religions in it, but could be like a Christian country where officially it's Christian country, or another country could be officially known as a Jewish country or a Muslim country, for example, right? But that does not mean whatever those citizens of that country does represents that kind of faith, or even their political leaders for that matter.
Yes.
That's why.
What number would you place? So obviously, Australia, let's just talk about Australia. I think only 0.4% of the population works in the military of Australia, and actually is a military aspect to the country. So what number would you put of radicals within a nation where you start to say the nation itself has issues, right? The nation itself. So I'll step away from Iran for a second and go to Pakistan. They did a survey recently where they were asking about some radical questions, effectively, like if a woman commits adultery, should she be stoned? If a what's it called? Is this terrorism attack good, bad, otherwise, don't care, yada 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 yada. And the levels of extremism were 70% plus. So what we would consider in Australia to be an extreme opinion was 70% plus across the board. And so to me, that says, okay, either the state is propagandizing to the people, and the people have now been inculcated. And you would have seen these videos. They came out probably 3 or 4 years ago of this lady who was going at the school presentation, and the kids would walk up and she's like, what will you do for Pakistan? And and the kid comes up and is like, I will bomb India for Pakistan. And it was hilarious, right? Like, you listen to it because we have no idea. But these were 7, 8, 9-year-old kids who were saying, I'm going to bomb India. And I don't think a lot of people took that, right? And so I'd love to get your perspective on the number. Is there a number? Because I agree with you, and I'm not trying to attack all Islamic nations, right? Because my dad just went to Turkey and he said it was gorgeous. I think that what I want to get out, I guess, and you don't speak for all Muslims. You're not an imam. You are an imam in training, and so it's more just an opinion on how does the West stop being Islamophobic when that's the sort of stuff, the data that is coming out of those countries is 70% plus. Do not mind a little bit of terrorism here and there.
I think we have to be smart ourselves. Like, one thing that changed my mind, obviously, we can easily distinguish these things, is that, like I said, gain that knowledge, go and learn it from yourself. Don't just trust certain sources. It could be BBC, it could be CNN, it could be any of these sources. Who is to say that this is coming from something that, like, this is what they learn in these kind of programs, is to put it in a way like we are doing in here, like we're talking about peace and unity, yet there are certain words that come up that could be controversial, right?
Of course.
So we could channel that in any way that we want, sometimes manipulate it in any way, the wording, and cut out pieces and things like that. And I think those things that we hear, that people are getting brought up with ideologies, to even with their kids, and, for example, all these other, I think that is more on a political basis. That's more on what the issue of the world we are facing right now today has actually come from entirely. Because, like I said, I like to separate faith and politics altogether, because politics these days, it's not something that, and I stopped following politics. Why? The main reason was I realized how fake it is. It's fake. Like,
it's theater.
It's theater. It's all a show. It's all something that you want to rehearse and perform in front of people, and that's what it's become. And I've realized enough. So I think gain knowledge, study the actual religion, and really see for yourself what is being represented, and also go learn about these cultures. Travel. We've actually in our religion, we are encouraged a lot to travel anywhere we can, to learn about these people, to learn about the real realities of what these ideologies represent. And yes, the world has become corrupted. Majority of it has. I'm not going to disagree with that. It really, really has. But it all comes down to the fact that people have become more distant from faith itself. It's not important anymore. People now, they're so busy with their fast-paced lives. I don't know if you know that poem about Robert Frost, the stopping by the woods in a snowy night or something like that along those lines. That is a great explanation of, and that's why the Prophet says, 1 hour of reflection is better than 1 year of worship, because we don't get time anymore to reflect. Get up, go work, come back. There's more other problems here and there, especially in the Western world that I've been introduced to. I've realized this.
Yes, and just sit in silence.
Yeah.
Everyone has headphones on listening. Everyone's doing something. No one just sits in silence and just puts their hands together and says, please, I don't know what's going on. Help me.
That's right. And we need that. We need that clarity. We need to be able to find ourselves before we can recognize everything around us. We don't even know ourselves. People have lost themselves, and that's why they're not able to identify between right and wrong anymore. And
Yes.
that's why humans have been created in a way where we are more drawn to our desires and the bad things. So that's why the Prophet says, make sure you do good. Force yourself to do good, because sometimes you're drawn to that bad desire because of Satan, because of factors around you. Look all around us. When you see social media, do you know what's the main thing that's wrong with social media and how you can tell that this is actually a big problem in the world? Is when you look at a video of simply just somebody making a meal, and it could be a really bad meal as well. It wouldn't taste nice, but people will see that and it will get about millions of views, while there'll be
Oh,
a
yes.
scholar sitting or a priest sitting or someone giving knowledgeable advice or something beneficial, and that can get maybe 400-500 views. That's someone who spent all their
Yeah,
life.
it's the bubble. It's the bubble, right? A lot of people, and I was speaking to someone about this yesterday, and I said the impetus on social media platforms to remove their filtering so that you are just constantly fed the same thing. There has to be a rule. There has to be something like 25% of what comes into your feed is nothing to do with anything in your algorithm, because and I especially saw this after, I'm sure you would have heard about the death of Charlie Kirk, right? And I saw this after that people who I really love and who had been to my home, who had eaten with me, who had seen my kids, hugged me, they had almost a cheerful view of his death.
Hmm.
And I literally said, and this might be a touch point for you, but I said I don't understand how they can celebrate this guy's death more than people celebrated the death of Osama bin Laden. Number one. And two, I said, I don't understand how. I remember when Osama bin Laden died. And when Osama bin Laden died, I was in school and I said, oh, okay.
Yeah, that's simple. Yeah.
What are you? Okay, the guy's dead.
Yeah.
Like, okay, his soul is now being judged. He will either, meet his God, my God, or the dirt. Right? They're the three options that we really have these days in our faith, or Buddha. Who knows? It could be Buddha. But I'm obfuscating a bit. But I think that you're right. I think social media is a blight. I would love, and we will do this again. We will do this again, I think 10, 15 times and still not even scrape the surface of our ideologies.
Yeah.
But before we do, I've got two more things that I wanted to bring up. The first one is your opinion on Iran and its funding of terror across the Middle East. That is Hamas. And if it's true, tell me if I'm wrong, because all the money leads that way. Iran funding Hezbollah, Hamas, the Houthis in that region, and Iran is a Shia nation. And so I want to understand if other politicians not, but the majority of the people are. What's your thought process on that? That's probably number one. I'll let you speak on that.
Shia nation does not always mean Shia faith in some extent. I mean, at the end of the day, we are still facing politics. And like I mentioned earlier, this like I've let go of it entirely. I don't, and something that I've let go, it's hard to comment on either because my knowledge is very limited. It's very limited in that sense. Like I said before, so it's really something I don't really know how to answer in this case,
So
because
your perspective is coming entirely from your worry for the soul rather than the worry for the body.
it's a worry for everything in general, because you have to look at my position as someone who's learning religion. That means that's really my concern, and that's all I can really express, and that I have confident knowledge in,
Yes.
But when it comes to the issues of the world and things like that, I don't concern myself as much about it at the end of the day. Not because I don't care, but because I don't have enough information. And like you said, it's sometimes can be a show. It could be something that is just being performed, right?
Yes.
At the end of the day, like I mentioned about, that's why I could only say that one narration of the three oppressions for you. to really get an idea that innocent life is innocent life. It does not matter who it is, what faith it is, or anything like that. So in terms of this,
I agree.
it's not. Yeah, I'm very limited in this. Maybe
That
later
makes
on,
sense.
who knows? Who knows? I might
Yeah, if you do some
be
more
able.
looking, we'll talk about it next time.
Yeah, yeah. Well, you never know, but it's not that I'm parting away from it. I don't want to say something that I don't know about. You know,
Yes.
sometimes the best thing to say is I don't know.
I like that. I think that's smarter. I think it's better to admit ignorance than to be ignorant and go and make someone else more ignorant as well. I think
Yeah.
that's very intelligent. I'm going to ask you one more question, and then I'm just going to let you maybe give us some sources, maybe some people that we should look at, if you've got any pages that we should follow as well. But my last question is this, and it might be a bit of a fun one, but the
Okay.
practice of taqiyyah, right? How can I know that anything you've told me today is legit? Go.
Because one of the things is, like I said, in Islam is honesty. And we fear the witnesses of how Allah is our witness. And especially other things I don't know, but especially with religion, we cannot lie. We cannot go again. We are representing something that is the message. And my main purpose is to come and bring this peace and unity and love and mercy and spread it amongst everyone. And for that, there is no reason to be dishonest about it. There's no reason, I'm not trying to protect anything. I'm not trying to take anything or give anything. It's more like just a general idea of spreading what I am passionate about, I reckon. Yeah.
And I'll elaborate on what taqiyyah is, because it's a bit of a boogie word, to be honest. And taqiyyah, and correct me if I'm wrong, but the practice of taqiyyah textually from the actual text is, if your life is in danger because of your faith, you can lie and say that you are not a Muslim. Is that correct? You can lie with your mouth. You can lie with your mouth, but not with your heart.
Yes, there was incidents. There was so I'll give one example of Taqiya is the wife of the Pharaoh during Prophet Moses. One best example, right? She practiced Taqiya because she was at risk. She was the only believing woman within the court of the Pharaoh until the incident of the lady happened where the Pharaoh killed her young child in front of her, and that's when she couldn't handle it anymore. So she had to sort of not pretend, but she had to sort of find gaps to go around in order to not be revealed as a practicing lady who believes in the oneness of God and not the Pharaoh himself, because her life was in danger. And those are the things that it's for your own protection. It's not more like for example, right now I am not at risk of anything. There's no problem, nothing like that. I don't have to, and it's not really lying. It's more about concealing it. It's not the fact that you would ask me a question and I have to lie about it.
So it's a lie of omission. It's a lie of omission rather than a lie.
Let's say example, like you would ask me a question, right? And instead of me giving you a wrong answer, I just told you, look, for example, instead of I can't give you a wrong answer. That's lying in general,
Yes.
properly, right? And when my life is at risk, there are certain conditions into it. So that's why it's a bit complicated, because there's condition. There was a girl who converted, but she was in a Hindu family. But she had to practice taqiyya. Why? Because her life was in danger. If her parents or anyone would find out, the Hindu parents, they would pretty much kill her. You know how reputation is a big deal there. So these are more just sort of to protect yourself rather than to go and express dishonesty and things like that to the world. It's just protection. Even the uncle of the prophet practiced certain bits of this. A lot of people in history, yeah. But yeah, so certain times you just have to in order to be safe. But it's not lying.
So it is a boogie word. It's just a boogie word. Because it's a new thing. It's the new trend. It used to be Sharia law was the big. Everyone says Sharia law. Everyone loses them. Sorry, it used to be jihad. Jihad was the first word. Everyone was like, oh, they say jihad, it's terrible. They say martyr, it's terrible. They say Sharia, it's terrible. And now the new boogie word that's going around is taqiyyah. There's actually an imam from South Australia, I believe he is, and he is he is going around talking about Taqiyyah at the moment. I forgot what his name is. I'll find it and I'll send it to you. And he's hated.
You said
He
he's a
ended up.
Shia imam?
Yeah, I believe so. I'll be honest, I'm not 100%. I only ran across him maybe I ran across him about 2 weeks ago. I'll find the name, but he was speaking about Taqiyyah, and he goes around, and he's got a very definitive canter. He's like, "You cannot tell me that the Muslim faith is this. It is not." And he wears the like. I'll find him. I'll send him to you. But he was going around talking about Taqiyyah, and but I think we spoke about all of them now. We spoke about Jizya, Sharia, Jihad, Martyr, Taqiyyah, and honestly, mate, I've really enjoyed this conversation. I think it's going to be the first of many. I've learnt a lot as well, just about the similarities and the differences. It's sort of like we're looking at a reflection of each other almost through water. In some of the things that I've noticed, it's there are texts that are so similar, but they bend a little bit with the breeze with Islam and Christianity, and so they sort of split off. And I guess that's a perfect analogy of the story of Isaac and Ishmael, right? Where Isaac was the Judaic faith and Ishmael was the Islamic faith. And so I think we've given people a lot to think about. I don't think this has really been a good discussion. I at first believed that it would be more of a debate, but we've pretty much aligned on a lot of the core principles.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think we dug too deeply into the theology. I think next time we might do that a little bit more.
Yeah, no, for sure. I think it's good. If you like this, certain small little brief explanations of those 4 to 5 words that we mentioned, just because we haven't covered some of it, because they do play a big part in how the ideology of the religion is in the world, and it scares people when they hear those words, right?
Oh, yes.
Especially with things like jihad and martyrs and taqiyyah and stuff like that. Taqiyyah is like we mentioned that. I'll go in quickly, like briefly about everything, just a short reply. It's just it's sort of like a pragmatic approach to this. It's more like a survival in the face of danger rather than being dishonest in your everyday life. It's like it's safeguarding yourself and the individual as well as the community in sort of times of crisis. That's more like a generalized idea of taqiyyah, right? When we go
Yes.
like jihad is a big one. Jihad does not mean go kill people and sacrifice all this. It's jihad itself means to struggle.
Yes.
Jihad is to struggle in the way of God, struggle in the way of your, like the narration
That's
says
actually
that.
funny. I'm just realizing that if jihad means struggle, then it's in German. Do you know what that is?
What's that?
Mein Kampf. My
Well,
my struggle.
there you go. Yeah.
Yeah. I've never put those together.
Everything links to itself. Like,
Oh,
so
it's scary, man. It's scary.
interesting, actually. The more we know, and it opens up our mind.
Well, I mean, there's been what now? I think 20 billion people on Earth throughout its entire history, and so there'd probably be some interesting stuff when you actually dig into it. So, jihad means struggle. I'll let you keep going after
jihad
that.
jihad means struggle. With one of the biggest narrations we have, and it says that the biggest jihad that you can do is with your own self. So the biggest struggle with your own self. That's the hardest thing to conquer. Where not to do sins, and all the prophets,
Yes.
and even including Jesus, he also did it in order to resist evil and have that courage, and not allow hatred, for his disciples and people around him. All these are jihad as well, and it's just simple as that, honestly. But that fighting is only permitted when you are attacked first.
Self-defense. Yes.
Yeah, it's self-defense. That's what it's more against. It's like against oppression and aggression. It's just more like defending yourself against these things. But the biggest one, like I said, is the one within your own self. What do we got? Then we got Sharia.
Oh, Sharia, yeah.
Sorry, Sharia. Sharia. We talked about Sharia. It's
Yes.
not something that it's like literally similar to the commandments and the things that have been given to past prophets as well. So it's not. It's just a way of the path of religion to follow and a lifestyle. Just certain principles and guidelines. That's what
Yes.
pretty much it is. So it doesn't. It's not a
And it makes
punishment.
sense as well. I think
Like
what
yeah,
I do find interesting is the fact that we needed a Sharia law after the Ten Commandments if we also believe that the Ten Commandments are true. Is there anything inside of the Sharia law that contradicts
the
the
Sharia
Ten
law.
Commandments?
The Sharia, the law of Islam is also telling you things such as pray, how to pray. It's telling you to fast. It's telling you to pay charity. It's telling you to. It's about all these principles of love. How to also live your, how to do oblation, how to wash your hands and face and stuff before prayer. All these, a lot of these practices that we need to do as well. So the Ten Commandments was more of a way of life and things to follow, to have like this, as you guys know more.
Yeah, it's sort of more like the Ten Commandments is the strict law of what you can and can't do, whereas Leviticus and the book of Leviticus outlines, I guess, the principles and practices of the faith and how you can live a good life.
That's right. That's right.
Okay, that
And
makes
that's
sense.
why we believe that's why this like all this like when I mentioned all the prophets came and all the books that came before Islam, it was all to really bring the good news of the establishment of Islam itself. So that's why Islam then compiles all of this plus its own new ideas into this book Quran. So that's why you get all the books in this one and the third fourth one that compiles, that really sums up everything in detail to tell you how to have a better life, I guess, with guidelines and history and stories and everything. So yeah,
Yes.
moving on to, then you got Jizya. Jizya is it was the tax that was paid by non-Muslims. It was like a historical Islamic, under the Islamic State. In return for, they would receive sort of protection from military duties. This was also like similar to the charity, or what we call zakat and Muslim tax. It was a Muslim tax. So either way, it's a tax like we pay today. Whether I am a citizen or not, we still pay tax, right?
Yes.
And that ensures our share of the government and state itself. So it's not really to go towards the sort of the non-Muslims and sort of get them to pay all this money and then all this. But it's not really that enforced thing. It's more like just the fact that everyone has this equal contribution, I would say.
Why is
So
it split? That's a good question. Why is it split between Muslim and non-Muslim? Is it because the money goes to different things, or you mentioned that maybe they don't have to do military service? What is it?
those were more sort of to, it's in terms of splitting is because they didn't follow the religion. It wasn't so that say you're not a non-Muslim, so you have to give me the. No, it was more the fact that it's just called that word because it's specifically to them. It's like for us, it's called zakat. It also has a term. So everything has a term that we call. You know what I'm trying to say? So you have
Yes.
to put a name to these things so that we know what
So
it
it'd
is.
be like for Muslims, it's we or non-Muslims we pay GST in Australia, but if you're a Muslim in Australia, you have to pay MST. So it's like general population services tax, and then there's Muslim services tax, and they're both equivalent, but they sort of you
Yeah.
want to see where they're coming from different streams almost.
Yeah, it's also a structured government system to be able to categorize certain things, to know and have a structured government to know where certain things are coming from. Imagine if a non-Muslim paid a tax that is paid by a Muslim, for example, right?
Yes.
Then everyone, then and people would forget his share. You know what I'm trying to say? It's more to say like, you know what, this person is an honest person. He paid his share, he did his share, and we, as a return, are able to give that
Could it
protection.
also be that obviously a non-Muslim inside of a Muslim country, like I'm not sure how the taxes would have been collected in the past, but I mean, in the church we had the 10% rule, right? So we had the word is, it's not a tariff, but the word is escaping me now. But there was a 10% rule. So 10% of everything you owned went to the church. Do Muslims pay that within the mosque, or did they used to? And so then obviously the non-Muslims were not going to mosque, and so they have to pay a tax.
It's more like the Muslims were already paying their own tax, right? So either way, it's the same thing, but one is just because you're Muslim, you're paying your own tax in your own way anyway. It's not the fact that they're trying to differentiate in terms of amounts and stuff. It's more like because they were non-Muslim, they needed to know that it's coming from here, this person's coming from here, this money is coming from there. They wanted to have
Yes.
equal sort of system of knowing exactly what's been done. In terms of jizya, then Imam Ali in his government, he would actually ensure that the elderly non-Muslims was the citizens was received state welfare from the treasury itself. So these were actually, they were helping each other in this case as well. It wasn't to differentiate anyone or discriminate against being a non-Muslim. Like I said,
That
then we
makes sense.
move on
That does
to,
make sense.
yeah. I mean, it's more like, it's the bad idea has been spread, and that's why people scared of it, I guess. Then we got martyr, which is we call it shaheed. Martyr means a witness, someone who's just a witness. Shaheed, like eyewitness. There's no God. Eyewitness. The prophet is his messenger, and Ali is the successor. In this kind of things, and it's more about someone who dies while standing with the truth and justice. And God says in the Quran that don't think that those who are slain in the way of God and Allah are dead, but they are alive. So martyr is someone who, and like I said, if you research the story of Karbala of Imam Hussein, which is Imam Ali's son, a big massacre against oppression.
I
That's
actually did look it up. There's a guy that I watch on TikTok. He's hilarious. His name is the Bruce, and he does these really good videos. And he I don't know if you've ever seen it. It's like transblender gender adventure. It's like, I am here in the. I'll send you his
yeah, I know.
profile.
Yeah, I know who you mean. Yeah,
He's so funny, and he just
correct.
did a post. Oh, he did a post about the temp, and I spoke about this in the show, I think on Thursday, or on the show on the Monday/Tuesday. The temple that is built and the mosque that is built there is beautiful. It is stunning on the spot where he was murdered. Incredible,
Yeah,
beautiful. I
it's
couldn't believe it when I saw it.
one of the main reasons why I got back to religion itself, to be honest, and decided to pursue is his story. And I hope that you can go one day there, because anyone can go there, and like I said, non-Muslims have gone. But yeah, it's a beautiful story. We can highlight on this, like, and mention it in future actual story of behind it, and I think it's good for humanity. But yeah, so that's like, it's because martyrdom is similar with the, like, cross sacrifice, for example. You know what I mean? The sacrifice he gave, and both gave his life and power for truth and love. He could have had all those, but at the same time, it.
What do you say? I will ask, and I'm sorry to interrupt, but what do you say? Because it just popped into my head, and otherwise I'll forget. What do you say about the suicide bombers who are classed as martyrs?
Not martyrs.
Not martyrs.
No, we are not allowed to commit suicide in Islam. It's actually a
Ah,
very, very big sin. It's a major sin, which is highly, like, hated, I would say, in this religion.
but the Sunni Muslims believe that Muhammad was suicidal. Did you mention that earlier?
Yeah, that's what I mean. It's suicidal, that the Prophet one day went and tried to want to come and jump off a cliff, but that's not the case. That's not a prophet that is infallible. That's not a prophet that I want to believe and trust the religion. You know what I
Wow.
mean? And they
Yes.
have fabricated him in that way. And that's what I mean. It's not just the corruption of religion in terms of successorship, it's also character assassination of the Prophet and the religion itself, I would say. And that's why, don't just look at these sects in terms of just Sunni. Sunni has sects within itself, which is,
As well.
yeah. So this also has a lot of deep, in-depth, like, corruption into it, which follows on to making the prophets like a person who completely he was not. Is completely outside of religion. So yes, suicide bombing, again. That's why I said, with labeling, it doesn't represent Islam. We are not. Not only we're not allowed, like, it's actually forbidden for us. Halal and haram. It's haram
Yes.
for us to take our own life or life of somebody else.
Wow. I mean, it's there are certain things that you learn about. I didn't actually know that. I mean, it makes sense because the law is very similar the law and the punishments, I think, are sort of different. I think the punishments of the law within the statehood of Islam is probably more similar to Old Testament Judaism. But the law, in terms of the moral law, is very similar to Christianity. So that does actually make sense to me.
Well, it's funny you say that, because the corruption began with the people that had claimed that they had converted to Islam, yet they had come from Judaism itself. So not only Judaism corrupted Christianity, but it corrupted Islam at the same time. That's the take we get from it. And these are in their books, by the way. I'm not just saying it because I'm being biased. The research has been in their books, and the narrations are authentic.
Well, there's a lot of really really good literature out there now about the privations of Jewish ideology that spread from effectively the end of the first millennia through till now, and the way that they've sort of cultified in a way. There's like a subset of Jews like that are sort of linked in with the Freemasons and sort of linked in with the Illuminati and those sorts of conspiracies as well. But even just the actual, when you look at the state of Israel from a moral perspective, without any external stuff, so without what's happening in Gaza, etc. I mean, it's the hotspot for LGBTQ. It's the hotspot for pedophilia. Like, there's some really, really scary stuff when you actually start digging into the details of these of Judaism and what people have stolen from the original texts to sort of to build these ideologies. So that is also, so I'm speaking mostly about the issues with Islam, right? Because I'm speaking with you. But I'm sure that there'll be a time where we discuss the issues of Israel and the issues of Judaism. But I don't think today is going to be that day, because we've been speaking for 3 hours. I'm getting yelled at. We have to go.
That's okay. Yeah, no, we'll wrap it up.
I'll give you the last word. I'll let you just say maybe some sources and some texts that people can go to understand Shia Islam. If there's anyone that we can listen to, especially from Australian perspectives, that we can listen to from Australia, and maybe anywhere that if you want people to follow you or look for you, that they could find you.
I mean, it's been a great conversation. I just want to thank you for having me at the start, and it was really good, respectful conversation we had. I learned a lot as well, and I hope you did as well, and whoever else is watching or listening. This was great and effective communication, which I liked. And the link we found between the relationships of the religion itself was beautiful, at the same time very enlightening and insightful. So I believe at the end of the day, it just comes down to, like, these religions have come down, each and every one of them, that if they are followed correctly, they are all perfect religions, and they lead us to God himself. It's only when people decide to put their own opinion and turn it into something that it gets ugly, I guess. So that's why even when we mentioned Judaism earlier about how it corrupted, it's not Judaism as a fact. It's people who practice Judaism.
Yes.
The religion Judaism, Moses came and brought that. It was a beautiful religion. It was really good commandments, and we live by that even till today. So yeah, but in terms of speaking, I'm quite active as much as I can be here and there in the mosque or giving lectures. Mostly my work is online, and that's where I can spread more of it. My aim is just to love and spread the love and the mercy of God.
Do you have an Instagram handle that people could go to?
I do. It's called Abu Saleh. It's ABUSAL3H. You'll find me there, and if anything, contact me. I can help out any questions. I hope nobody felt offended. Nobody felt disrespected in this. That was not our aim. Literally, it was just to be able to have a conversation of love, peace, and harmony and unity. So yeah, thank you so much. It's been a pleasure. And obviously, if you want to learn, you can about any things. There's the Quran is there. Make sure you follow the right path of it. Make sure you follow the right sources of it, which is the Quran itself, right interpretation of the Shiaism side of it, because that's the divine choosing of the line, and it's not because I'm biased. It is evidence of it, but that's because I fell into that trap myself beforehand, and so I had to come back and really find out. So yeah, there's those texts, and make sure even the narrations that you are researching, it's from those similar narrations that come from the divine leaders of the 12 imams and the prophet, and it's not just being those fabricated, because there's more fabrications. Double check the books and see where it aligns, the names of the book, which sect it provides, because a lot of misconception comes because of this. And yeah,
Yes.
thank you so much.
Mate, thank you so much. Thank you so much for being here. And I'm definite that we will talk again soon.
Hopefully, definitely. Thank you so much.